Good morning and happy Tuesday to everybody. What's today's date? I gotta look it up. I feel like it's the 15th. It is Tuesday the 15th. I should know because I am counting down to when my son goes back to school. But good morning to everybody. Good morning, beautiful people, as you start to pile in the chat, the notifications are starting to pay off. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's time for the show. I'm so sorry for you, Rodolfo. I know you like the old format, Rodolfo, when you were able to get in here before everybody else. But now you got to step up your game. Rogue Shop is on their game. You know what I'm saying, Rodolfo? You're going to have to step up your game. You can do it, man. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. I believe in you because you're good enough. You're smart enough. And doggone it, people like you. It's a Mad TV reference for all you young people. Good morning and happy Tuesday to you. Welcome back to the Old Fashioned Sports Show. I'm your host, Anwar Richardson. Not to be confused for Anwar Richardson. I've got so many great things for us to discuss, so many great things for us to get into today over the next 3 hours. Yes, 3 hours, full hours. I'm on the block by myself, as Kevin Hart would say. But yes, I'm looking forward to it. So here's giving you kind of a layout of how things are going to go today. I'll go ahead and get into the introduction pretty soon. At 9:20, I'm going to have Keenan Womack in here. We're going to talk hoops because we've talked so much football. We've been focusing on so much football. You guys, we kind of have overlooked that Texas actually picked up a 5-star. Now, if Texas had missed on a 5-star, we definitely would have been talking about it. So you know how I feel. I feel like it's got to work both ways. Like if you're going to praise somebody or rip somebody when things go bad, then you got to praise them when things go good. So I'm going to get Keenan in here to kind of give me kind of a little bit of a basketball update. And, we probably won't talk to Keenan much more until basketball season, but I thought it was kind of significant to get that one in there. And then at 10:20, my main man, Jason Suchomel, is going to be in here giving us some recruiting updates. There seems to be some things brewing of a little Kobe Black action. Everybody was kind of hinting towards stuff yesterday. I'm like, oh, snap. Okay. So, yes, we're going to get into a little bit of that in the 10-20 hour. I will, at some point, have buy or sell questions. This thing's become so fluid, especially on days that I have guests. So I try to work it in, and then we got breaks that we got to get into. So sometimes it doesn't always work out. And then, of course, we're going to have social media standouts, which, of course, is one of my favorite parts of the show. And I love kind of getting into all the things that people have done from the social media standpoint. Good morning to you, Chris Bennett. Good morning to you, ACV3324, which is the longest name ever, but it's 802. And, of course, for you, most of you guys, OU still, thank you. 49-0. I'll put that over here just for everybody, just so you can start off your morning. You don't need no praise and worship. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, don't do your praise and worship. Don't mess it. But you don't need all that. All you need to know is that 49-0 happened, and your day, your Tuesday should be automatically good. But listen, by the way, if you guys are OU fans, Aggie fans, whatever case may be, all the haters, you guys are welcome to as well, because no matter what, even if you don't like me or something, I'm going to make you love me at some point. I'm just going to make you love me, and so that's okay. We'll go ahead and get into that. Listen, the first part of this show is going to be brought to you by my main man, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He's the man with the master plan. If you got to sell a home in the DFW area, you better look no further than my main man, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. You're looking to buy a home, you're looking to sell a home, like whatever that case may be. Now is the perfect time to get that home, especially if you're out there in the DFW area. If you know someone who's out there in the DFW area, you hit up Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He will hook you up. He's promising no commission for the month of October. No, I'm just joking. He's never promised that. That's a joke. He's not doing any of that, but he's a Longhorn fan. As I always tell you, he's promised you guys 12-0. That's his prediction. That's what he believes in. And so make sure you take care of him, hook him up. I am super excited because tomorrow school goes back Oh, Leander ISD teachers. I got to see them last night for Meet the Teacher. Oh, I got to see the teachers. I was just I was happier than they were. Let me tell you that much. I was definitely happier than those kids. Kids are kind of lukewarm, got to figure out my desk. Where's my desk? Who I'm going to sit next to? I'm going to sit next to my friends, this and that. I'm like, hey, pick out something. Let's get this thing. Y'all going to take him. All I wanted to know is y'all going to take him on Wednesday morning, right? He's good to go. As long as he's good to go, he's going to be here. Y'all take him. Bye. Sark After Dark, yes. But they'll go ahead and go. I'll just go one more time. Sark After Dark. Yes, I will have Keenan Womack in at 9:20, Jason Suchomel in at 10:20. So don't go anywhere. I've got you covered with the guests today. So I was really excited to do the teacher thing, and teachers do a really good job. I will always shout out teachers for everything that they do, the hard work that they put in. But yeah, it's time for y'all to get back to doing what y'all do, which is take care of my damn kids, so I don't have to during the day. So thank you, teachers. Can't wait. Gonna drop you off a bottle of wine. The registrar, the teachers, 5th grade teacher. My son's last year, by the way, in 5th grade. Before we go into that great middle school journey, so the very last year of that, at least for that one. But then my old ass has still got another kid that's coming behind. So I mean, I got a kid that's going to start kindergarten. So I'm at the same school for like 11 straight years. It's crazy, but at some point we'll roll down the hill. But I will be the old person at all my kids' graduations. They will know me as father, but everyone who sees them will know me as grandpa or papa, because that's how old they'll think I am. It's all right. We'll keep working on it. So I want to kind of get into some of the things. And let me start the show with this. Let me start the opening drive kind of like this. And again, really happy for you guys to be here because I'm really excited. I think we're gonna have a really great show today. By the way, hit like if you haven't hit that like button, would be kind of awesome there. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done that. And by the way, if you got friends who are Longhorn fans, just send them this link right now. Just go ahead and send them the link. Like, hey, I know you like Texas Longhorn stuff. Kind of hard sometimes to find things to talk about. I like sports, and it's a Texas Longhorn of centric, but I talk about all kind of sports, and I bring in NFL people, fantasy football things like. So it's Longhorn centric, but it's not Longhorn exclusive. If that makes sense. So go ahead and send that to your friends, your family. Absolutely, we appreciate it. So I want to start off the opening drive. I'm gonna kind of start off like talking like this. You guys know how I like to get this whole thing started. So when you think about college football and you think about the podium, because this is one of the things that I was thinking about a little bit yesterday, and of course a little bit this morning, especially on my morning walks. The podium, especially for a college football coach, is similar to the pulpit for a preacher. It is the place where the college football coach kind of stands before the congregation and delivers a message. It's the thing that they want to get across to you on this particular day. It's the topics that they've been thinking about. But it's been all week long, over the weekend, and they starting to get in my head like, this is what I want to say. This is the message that I want to convey when I get in front of the people. It becomes the point. Now, clearly, we got all kinds of people like that, right? You got the energetic ones, we got the Pentecostal coaches, we got the fire and brimstone coaches, right? We got the Methodist coaches, the Catholic coaches, we got all kinds of them, right? And then, like any pulpit, right? There's always going to be like different messages, right? There's going to be the message of like the good news. Sometimes it's going to be really, really encouraging, right? Sometimes it's just going to be lots of good positivity, positive things that you're going to kind of hear and ascertain within that time frame that the coaches are speaking. And then sometimes they go a little bit of, old school. And sometimes a little fire and brimstone, a little snake handling kind of old school, kind of Waco-ish kind of preachers, right? Just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, we in Waco, like, we sure are. Like, you have those kind of people as well, right? Snake handlers. I'm pretty sure that's what happens in Waco. And I think that most sports fans, when they look at these press conferences, they really just believe that the coach is just speaking to the media and nobody else. They're speaking to Anwar Richardson. They're speaking to Kurt Bowles. They're speaking to Chip Brown. They're speaking to Eric Henry, a new guys on the scene. Like they're speaking to Joe Cook. I want to make sure I make mention to certain people, and then the list goes on, right? And you guys can insert all your jokes about all the Austin media members at this point. You know, you get your Cedrics and Goldens and stuff. Just insert all your jokes as to what the coaches are saying to all these particular media members. Don't forget Dennis either. Make sure you smash on him as well. But I think most of you guys think like it's just a one-on-one conversation. But I want to make sure you guys understand that that's not necessarily how the coaches see it. And that's not how they view it. And that's not how they view it when they get behind the podium / the pulpit. They view this as them talking to us to get a message out to you. We're kind of like the pigeon carriers that get the message out to the masses. And that's kind of what we end up doing when it's all said and done. But again, it's not just for Anwar to write something on Orangebloods or someone to write something on The Statesman or 24/7 or On 3. It goes deep. When they get to that podium, they want to make sure that there's certain things that they share. Now, clearly, we get to a point where they have proprietary things that they don't want to share, right? There's things that they want to make sure that we don't know. And that things that they're not going to answer, right? That happens. It happens with like injury reports, right? Like football kids, and really with college football coaches more so than anything else. Because in the NFL, they're very transparent with the injury reports. Now, sometimes they're loose with the injury reports. Like, you know, we all know Bill Belichick has been a guy that's kind of loose. He'll list 18 guys on the injury report. And clearly some people will tell you that it's because of the gambling purposes, right? There's certain purposes that's a thing. But it's also, you know, to a couple of other things. It's to level the playing field. And it's also to be honest with the fan base. You know, and in the NFL field, that's an important. I think that's why, if I sidetrack for a second, I think that's what hurts the NBA. Because, you know, that load management thing is something that is horrible. Like it's horrible. I remember a few years ago, my son, when he was heavily into basketball. Now we're transitioning into the soccer thing, but he was heavily into basketball, and I still think he likes basketball. Typical kid, loves LeBron James, right? Just loves LeBron, and that's why not, right? You know, you're always going to love who's popular at the time. So I said to, you know, all right, man, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my son to a Spurs game. Oh, I'm going to take him to a Spurs game. Going to get him some lower level tickets. Yeah, I'm going to give him some low level tickets. I'm going to be Big Dad. You know, I'm going to have a son. So he's got the LeBron jersey. He got the number 6 jersey on. You know, we get into the arena. He's dancing with the little spur, the little animal. I don't know what that little thing is called, but he's dancing with the bull, I guess, for the lack of better terms. So he's dancing with the bull. The cheerleaders are out there in the corridor. They're all dancing as well. Like, he's having a good old time. He gets some food. I mean, he's feeling great. He's like, he's dancing. Like, you could not tell him anything. And then we get there. I'm like, man, look at these seats. Like, look what Daddy pulled off. I'm thinking Daddy of the Year is here. I've got this thing locked up. And then all of a sudden, realized that I've been doing warm-ups that LeBron ain't warming up. In fact, I don't see LeBron. And I start thinking, uh-oh. And it ended up being that LeBron eventually came out in street clothes because he was low managing that day. $300 a ticket. Gone. For us to look at LeBron on the sidelines. Coaches, you know, in the NBA aren't always as honest and transparent about that. NFL coaches definitely are. And then, of course, the college football coaches, they get a little bit more antsy. And then when it happened, so yesterday, Steve Sarkisian, he kind of starts talking about that injury thing as well. I guess what happened over the weekend, for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar, and we catch you guys up, that, you know, a couple of, you know, injuries happened. Jordan Whittington had an injury over the weekend, and he had to leave practice. And then, of course, Xavier Worthy is not practicing over the weekend as well. And so Steve Sarkisian, who was asked about injuries yesterday, and actually was the person that asked him, for kind of an injury update on Jordan Whittington, because that's the thing I reported. And so, this is one thing I always believe as far as reporters are concerned. If you report something, you need to be ballsy enough and man enough to ask the coach about the thing that you reported, because too often you'll see that people report things and then they get in front of the coach and they don't ask about it. Because it's easy to hide that report, whether it's when you're wrong, because you don't run the risk of getting called out, right? You don't run the risk of getting called out if that happens, right? And so Sarkisian kind of goes through this whole spiel. He goes, I know you guys got a job to do, but blah, 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 blah. He kind of talks about how he wished we wouldn't report things on injuries. And then he's like, you guys know I'm always transparent about these things, but, you guys report the stuff and the parents find out about it and parents are contacting me and so on and so forth. And this is what he has to deal with. So that's what he kind of, and it was like his message to the media, like that's what he used his pulpit for at that particular moment. Now, of course, the interesting thing about that, if I could playfully, respectfully push back on him, was during the spring, he reveals to us that Xavier Worthy had a hand injury, and he played with a broken hand. And so one of the reporters, Jim Rotuno, asks him from the AP, asks, well, hey, that's kind of important information. Like Xavier was kind of, getting a hard time by the fan base last year. Why did you not let us know that? And then he said, well, because, we have lots of injuries that we don't tell you about. And, you don't want to give, opponents an advantage. So there's kind of like that. I don't know what you want us to do with this information, coach. Like because we know that you're not going to tell us certain things. You let us know that you're going to tell us everything. But then you say, you should ask me certain things because I'm always going to tell you. Okay, I don't know. This is like trying to argue with one of my ex-wives. Like I'm just going to have to take an L on this one. Maybe I've learned the importance of taking L's. This is what happens when you've been married multiple times. I've learned the importance. I was just stepping back, but like, all right, man, I don't even know. This doesn't make any sense. Let me just go ahead and pour myself a drink and go watch what's on TV. Well, coaches step to the podium. They're speaking to the fan base, but they're also, most importantly, they're speaking to the players and they're speaking to their families. And of course, they're very close friends. This is an intentional thing. When we're talking specifically about players, it's a very intentional. And he's letting these group of people know this is where your child stands within the program. It's very important. It's very, very intentional. Coaches know that players listen to what is said in these press conferences. They understand that the coaches are going to say things about them, and they want to hear what these coaches say about them. So, when Sarkisian gets to a press conference, so you guys understand, and give you a couple of behind the scenes things here. Hopefully, this is why you listen. When Sarkisian gets off the podium, what typically happens, and I'm going to tell you what a Steve Sarkisian day would look like after a press conference. He gets phone calls, he gets text messages. This is going to be from parents. This is going to be from players, and they're going to be questioning him about the things that he said on the podium. They're going to, why did you say this? Why did you not say this? Like those things that he understands. So he understands these things of what's going to happen. So that's why it becomes a very, very intentional thing. Again, let me take you behind the scenes of something that you never get a chance to see, but I can tell you right now. When Steve Sarkisian gets to the podium, he typically has a little card, small little card of notes. Probably about, half this, so this side here, just a small little half, right? And the small little notes that are placed down for topics that he wants to get into and topics that he wants to discuss. He doesn't want to forget his talking points. And it's not just a Sarkisian thing. Tom Herman used to do that thing as well. Tom Herman would have his talking points and Tom Herman would have his notes. And they want to be very intentional about the things that they communicate and the things that they kind of come across, right? It's just like a preacher in the pulpit. And with that set up, and get ready, Blake, that's going to bring us to yesterday. And what the things that Steve Sarkisian said on his podium / pulpit that I think are important, what he said, and the things that are going to be important are what he did not say. So let's pause for a minute And when we get back, I'm going to get into everything that he said, but most importantly, what he didn't say on Monday.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the biggest UT football stars of the last decade. Bijan Robinson was a 5-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns, finishing as the nation's number 18 overall prospect, the second best prospect in the state of Arizona, and the number 1 running back in the country, according to Rivals.com. Upon retrospect, it's kind of amazing that former running backs coach Stan Drayton was able to land Robinson when you consider that Ohio State was perceived as a massive leader for much of his recruitment. In fact, on the day he committed, Rivals.com recruiting analyst Adam Gorney told Orangebloods, quote, "Even after the Atlanta 5-star challenge, it almost felt like Ohio State was the foregone winner," Gorney said that day. But as it got closer, I think the realization that he would basically be going across the country to play football kind of set in. He really liked Texas and USC a lot, had connections to both schools, liked the staffs, and how they would use him, and wound up finding a school closer to home that he was very happy with. It wasn't until Robinson visited Texas on an unofficial visit for the spring game in April that Texas began to make it surge. By the time June rolled around, a couple of months later, the Longhorns had emerged as a team to beat in his recruitment. Robinson was a part of a 2020 recruiting class that finished 14th in the nation that year in the Rivals.com rankings, and what turned out to be the final full recruiting class for Tom Herman. A few years later, and there's not a ton of meat on the bone with respects to the elite prospects from that year outside of Robinson. Jake Majors and Jaron Thompson remain as a few of the higher ranked players in that class, but it's actually 2 of the lower ranked prospects in the class, Jahdae Barron and Jalen Ford, that have made the biggest impact as the class begins to wrap up its contribution to the Texas football program.
That sexy voice that you were hearing is that of Jeff Ketchum, who will have his show, A House Divided, at noon, from noon to 3 o'clock. So make sure you stick around for that one. Jeff Ketchum, Chad Hastings, really good show. That's a Texas A&M/Texas show. Those guys go back, battle back and forth. Hit subscribe and get the notifications when that thing gets started as well. Okay. So let's go back to it, and let's finish up to some of my thoughts. And by the way, do me a favor, go ahead and start to get your buy or sell questions in the chat. If all goes well, I will get to those questions in the bottom of this hour. So go ahead and get your buy or sell questions in the chat as you're listening to me getting into it. Now, if you're driving, don't do that. Don't do that in the chat. Don't. I was tweeting. I was horrifically trying to tweet and drive on the I-35 yesterday in stop and go traffic. I was butchering all my tweets. I mean, autocorrect was failing me in the worst way. So don't do what I was doing by any stretch of the imagination. But get those questions in the chat. It will actually be there. And by the way, Danny Gray, you say you've been watching for 2 years and love every second. Thank you, Danny. I absolutely appreciate it. That means you go back to the drunk unk days. You go back to the wild days. You go back to before I cleaned up. You go before I became corporate. Before it was just wild Anwar. Drinking Anwar, just crazy Anwar. Now I'm like, hello, how's everyone doing? I'm being corporate today. I'm code switching. So no, I appreciate you. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate love and appreciate and support. So let's go back to the topic. Thank you for everyone who listens and supporting, by the way. One of the things that I feel like is important, one of the things I always say in my Anwar's philosophy of life, right? Sometimes in life, it's not about the things that you say. It's often about the things that people don't say. Because people always look for the things that people say to you. But they don't always talk about the things that are omitted that they don't say. And to me, that's when you got to listen with a third ear. And I'll give you a couple examples, right? Relationship. Does this outfit make me look fat? Well, what do you think? Wait. What did they not say? What they didn't say was the outfit didn't make you look fat, right? This is what I always use in analogies and stuff like that, where I see things and I watch someone on the news, right? And they'll be like, sir, you've been accused of being sexually inappropriate with young girls. Do you have a comment on that? No comment. I feel like that's something you should comment on, actually. Like, I feel like if there ever was a time to have a comment when you get accused of doing something inappropriate, that is absolutely the time to do, right? But it's what they don't say, right? How about this? Get ready to go out with someone. Maybe you're in a single thing. You want to show someone a picture of somebody like, man, get ready to go out with such and such, go out on a date. Man, what do you think? What do you think of her, man? You think she looks good? You think she looks all that? Like, talk to me, dog. They're like, man, she's got a really nice outfit on. Girl knows how to wear that style. Oh, he looks really good. He's a really sharp dresser. Oh, wow. What does he have? Why is that a dog in the background? Look at that. Where are you guys going? It's sometimes about the things that they don't say. And that's what happens often in life. Sometimes it's about the things that people say. But more importantly, it's about the things that they don't say. And that brings us to Steve Sarkisian yesterday. And it's some things that I feel like we need to kind of address, things I want to talk about, things that not only he said, but the things that he didn't say that I think we need to really get into. And I want to talk to you, and as I do this this morning. Sarkisian has been praising Alfred Collins, right? He's been praising him for everything that he's been able to do. And this has been kind of a great thing. And I'm really, really happy for Alfred Collins, right? Because I known people behind the scenes. I even know people on campus who are teachers who tell me he's a great person. I say teachers, professors, excuse me. I'm still in my elementary school zone, so no disrespect to anybody, but professors on campus who would tell me, man, he's a great guy. They love him in the classroom. Like, they think so highly of him. And they would ask me. I remember I had people calling me before the season, asking me, like, man, what you think about Alfred? You think he's going to do something, he's going to break through? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And they're like, man, it sucks because he's a really good kid. And it's been happening, though. And I've never been happier to maybe be wrong about someone than I have been about a guy like Alfred Collins. I don't think I ever am really happy to be wrong, right about anything like that. I don't take joy or glee. I'm not a hater or anything to that effect. But Alfred Collins was getting a lot of praise. Seeing one of the things that Sarkisian talked about him is like, on the, as far as the defensive line is concerned, he talked about him being a factor in the run game. Talked about him being a factor in the passing game. Talked about kind of a lot of the energy that a guy like Alfred Collins is bringing to this team, the things that he's bringing in practice. And listen, I think I've told you guys before, but I've been out of practice. I've seen that guy, and he looks like a person. When you look at him, you say, that guy looks like an NFL player. It's like mind blown, because you would see it, you say, man, that's it. Like, I covered the NFL. I know what NFL guys look like. You could see the little intangibles, right? I'm like, that guy looks like an NFL player. But even Pete K would say, man, it's just the consistency with him. Like, if he could be consistent, man, he could be really good. But he just hasn't been consistent. And that's the thing they've been talking about Alfred Collins for years. He's just a lack of consistency. And all of a sudden, it's starting to come together. All of a sudden, that consistency is there. And another person that he's mentioned Vernon Broughton. Vernon Broughton's name came up again yesterday as far as how good he's been doing in camp. He's kind of been another one of these pleasant surprises for Steve Sarkisian. Again, another person that we haven't mentioned, another person that we really haven't talked about a lot, right? And so you've seen this ascension. You've seen the mentions of guys like Alfred Collins on the defensive line. You've seen a lot of Vernon Broughton, right? That's what he's saying. But you know what he's not saying? He's not saying anything about Byron Murphy. And he's barely saying a lot about T'Vondre Sweat. I've heard Alfred Collins' name more recently than I've heard Byron Murphy's name. And that's just not an Anwar thing. Whatever. I'm hoping that you guys are subscribers to Orangebloods. But if for some reason you aren't, and you're a subscriber to another website, you're probably hearing some of the same things that I'm hearing. So that's intentional when he puts that out. Is it to push these other guys? Is it to get them to kind of step up a little bit more? There's something to it. There's an acknowledgement that's true. Of course, he's not going to acknowledge someone who's not good, because everyone will know that's not accurate. That won't fly in the locker room. People will detect that, and the BS detector will go up, and they're like, no. This is not true. This is not accurate, right? We've heard. Let me go to another one. I'll give you a good example. Another good example. We've heard a lot of good things about CJ Baxter. He talked about them. He's talked about Jonathan Brooks. And for all you guys who gave me a hard time yesterday outside of the Charles Wright, my Charles Wright fan club thing, I'm going to make a free Charles Wright t-shirt or something to that effect. But all you guys gave me a hard time about Charles Wright. When I mentioned the name Trey Wisner, you guys are like, there he goes. That's just more Charles Wright love. But guess who yesterday mentioned Trey Wisner? Steve Sarkisian. I'm not going to lead you alone. I was playing with you about the Charles Wright thing. I was serious about the Trey Wisner thing. And he mentioned Trey Wisner. He mentioned how good he's been doing on special teams, how good he's actually been doing as a running back as well. Like, Sark was very intentional. And again, these are things that he wants to get across. He's at that podium. He's at that pulpit. He wants to get across a message, and he wants to let people know these are the people who are standing out. These are the people who have my eye. These are the people who caught my attention. These are the people that I am respecting, and I also want to acknowledge, and I want this to be out there in a public forum so you absolutely know what they're able to do. But you know the other name, when now I get into what you're not saying. The name that he's not saying is Jaden Blue. And Jaden Blue is a name we haven't heard since the spring. And we heard a lot about Jaden Blue in the spring. And we heard a lot about all the advances that he made. And we heard a lot about that. But he's telling us about the people who are doing certain things. But sometimes I tell you in life, it's about the things that you don't say. When you don't mention a person like Jaden Blue, catches my attention as well. Yesterday, he started also talking about Gunnar Helm in the tight end position. He started talking about how he's made progress, and he's kind of become a guy that they really feel good about. And Gunnar Helm has made a lot of good strides, and props to him. Jatavian Sanders the other day said he felt like Gunnar Helm can do everything that he can do. He just hasn't had the opportunity yet. That's what he said during an interview. But he felt really confident about that man, a young man, was able to do. And you start hearing a lot more about Gunnar Helm. He had a little bit of a presence in the training camp, the scrimmage that they recently had. Like, you hear more about Gunnar and what he's doing. He even mentioned his two freshman tight ends, Spencer Sanders, Will Randall. Like, he mentioned what those guys have been doing. And I heard things, and I reported that over the weekend, that the tight ends were looking good. The two freshman tight ends were looking good. So Steve Sarkisian starts talking about those guys and praising those guys. And you start hearing a little bit about Spencer Sanders and a little bit about Will Randall. And then you hear a little bit more about Gunnar Helm. You're like, oh my goodness, like, this is really great things. Like, you feel good about the tight end room. And of course, you have Jatavian Sanders, right? Even though he had a little bit of a tough scrimmage, you understand, like, okay, you're feeling good about that tight end room. But you know what name he's not mentioning? Juan Davis. Sometimes in life, it's not about the things you say. Sometimes it's about the things that you don't say. The subject came up. Now listen, I know yesterday I got into the whole quarterback thing, quarterback moves the needle, so on and so forth. But if there's anybody who knows that the quarterback moves the needle, Steve Sarkisian. Like, if there's who knows better than a guy who's a former quarterback, right? Who knows a guy who coaches quarterbacks for all throughout his career, right? Steve Sarkisian knows when he mentions quarterbacks, everyone's going to perk up, everyone's going to listen, everyone's going to pay attention. That's just life. Just is what it is. And he's smart enough to know, if he says the two words, Arch Manning, it will set the internet on fire. It just is what it is, right? There's certain people that just have that name, that have that cachet, and then a guy like Arch Manning, it doesn't matter that he's a freshman. It doesn't matter that he's a third stringer. It doesn't matter any of those things. What just matters that his name is Arch Manning. And that's all that matters at this moment. That name absolutely moves the needle. And so here's what he said about Arch yesterday. There's two particular quotes I want to make sure I focus in on, right? So first of all, he starts off by saying, I think Arch Manning has really stepped his game up. He's playing at a high level. Then, again, start thinking from listening with a third ear, thinking about the messages that he's trying to get across and thinking what he wants the public to know, not only you as fans, not only me as a media member, but think about what he wants to communicate to the families, the friends of those people and those families. Like, start listening with a third ear, go deeper within it. He goes, Arch made a couple of plays with his legs. He had a third down scramble early in the scrimmage to extend a drive on 3rd and long. On another 3rd and long, he had a long touchdown run right down the middle. That's where I reported it was like the 70-yard run. I've seen people say plus 50. Cut it in half. I'll just say 60. I mean, it is what it is. It's clearly wasn't 10 yards, so it is what it is at that point, right? He goes, we want to play more man coverage. We want to affect the quarterback. But when you do that, and all defenders have their backs turned, guarded in man, and you get out of your rush lanes, an athletic guy like Arch can go split it, and he showed up. Goes, I think he was at 20 miles per hour, which is pretty impressive. He didn't even know he could go 20 miles an hour. So it's a nice play for him. Now, when you say stuff, and I was on Twitter a lot yesterday, and people do really good. I like when they take these quotes and put it on the graphics and put it down and get like 2,000 likes on their stuff. Like if I actually took the time to actually learn Adobe, I would do that for some of my quotes, but I just don't have that time. But I saw that, right? And people were talking about Arch running at 20 miles an hour. Like and so, I tweeted over the weekend that Arch had a really good scrimmage, right? And so Sarkisian's aware that thing is out there. Sarkisian, he knows. He's got a pulse. Like, there's two things that happen. And I'm not just saying because I'm not saying it from like an ego standpoint. I tweeted it out, so all of a sudden Sarkisian knows what I'm doing. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that thing became a kind of a story over the weekend. It became something that a lot of people were talking about, and Sarkisian becomes aware of that. What do I say? When things like that happen, people call him, they contact him, they tweet him, or tweet at him. He may or may not pay attention to him. He's got a SID, and John Bianco is going to make sure, like, hey, just so you know, these are the talking points that are out there. So he had every opportunity yesterday when the whole Arch Manning thing was going to come up. He could just kind of just wet blanket that thing and just say, he had a good run. But, he's still young. He's still learning, still in the battle. A lot of these so on and so forth, right? He didn't do that. He's at his podium. He's at his pulpit. He's got a message that he wants to get across. He was asked about Malik Murphy as well. And this is what he said. He said, Malik, he does so many cool things with that flash. We're trying to minimize some of the 1 or 2 plays of practice where there's an error. And that's the consistency factor of just staying consistent. The big plays are going to be there for him because he's so physically gifted. He's got great arm talent, but that's that but, right? That but always negates everything that's in front of it, right? Right before it, right in front, right? It was like, hey, man, I really think you're a good person, but ... And nobody's going to hear anything you have to say after that. But how do we minimize the not great plays and understand the value of the football? He's made a lot of really good progress, and I think that room is performing really well for us right now. Okay? So now he understands, he's smart enough to understand, hey, Malik, I'm going to praise Arch just a little bit because I need you to step up. Because you're second string and Arch is here. So guess what? I got to pump up Arch a little bit so when you see that and hear that, because I know your people are going to say like, oh, snap, he was talking all these great things about Arch at the 20-yard. He runs 20 miles an hour and all this kind of stuff. And he starts talking about how you need to limit mistakes, so on and so forth. So now all of a sudden in today's practice, now he's expecting Malik to come out there and say, oh, okay, this is what you said on the podium. All right. I see what you're going to do, and then work on those kind of things. You see how it's somewhat of a little bit deliberate, kind of a little bit of a mind game that they have going on, but really intentional as far as that whole thing is concerned. And so, yeah, those things happen. These things happen on the podium. And so when you have these press conferences and you think like, okay, well, he's just answering my questions. He's maybe answering Kurt Bowles' questions or Chip or whoever the case may be. As bad as sometimes the questions are, and sometimes the questions aren't good. I feel like my questions are all right. I think. I feel like you guys would call me out if my questions are bad. I feel like overall you guys like my questions. Now I don't feel like you love everyone else's questions in the press conference. I sense that and I take that. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes the questions are pretty dumb. You know what the worst part about the press conference is? The worst part for me is when someone asks a question that someone else just asked like 10 minutes earlier. And you just think, and I sit there, they say, were you even paying attention? Like, where were you? And sometimes it happens. Like sometimes maybe people are typing or not paying attention, but that's kind of the worst. That irks me more than Halloween candy questions or your favorite Thanksgiving meal. Like that. Those are just, I just know those things are coming the week of those things. So I just got to prepare myself mentally. Like someone from TV is going to ask Steve, like, what's your favorite Halloween candy? It's like, oh, I don't like candy corn. And then we'll just get into a whole debate of like candy corn being a trash Halloween candy, but so on and so forth. But nonetheless, also understand that when they're communicating to us, who else are they trying to communicate to? Right. And so when I give you the examples of like the people that he spoke about yesterday, he's speaking to the people who have done well, but he's not mentioning other people because he wants them to come back out. He wants Byron Murphy to come out, with his hair on fire in practice today. Cause he's like, man, this guy's been talking about for college, been talking about Vernon Broughton. Man, he ain't talking about me, my family. Like, all right, you know what, coach, I'm going to show you. He wants Juan Davis to come out with his hair on fire today. That's what he's looking for. Like he wants Malik Murphy to come out with his hair on fire. He wants Jaden Blue to come out with his hair on fire. He's like, I'm talking about these other people. I'm not talking about you. It's for a reason. Give me a reason to mention you. Give me a reason to praise you. It's a little bit of a head game, but it's okay. But just understand and make sure you know when coaches get behind that podium / pulpit, they're communicating to us. They're communicating to you. Like a lot of times they want to get you guys hyped up, get you guys ready for the upcoming game and make sure you guys come out and support and be hype and rowdy and give them a home field advantage. There's certain things that are going to communicate to us as media members because we're just asking questions. They're going to give us answers. So that portion of it happens as well. And then sometimes it's communicating to players who are doing well. And sometimes they're communicating to the people who need to step up by the things that they don't say. But either way, when they start talking about players within their pulpit, just know it's wise for all of us to listen because they're speaking. He's saying something just up for us to interpret it. It's up for the players to respond to it. All right. Get the questions in there for buy or sell. When we come back, we've got buy or sell coming in next. Get those questions in there. Everything that you want to know, everything that you want. Just know that we're going to do buy or sell. I'm going to talk about some of the freshmen that are standing out. I've got Keenan Womack that's going to be coming in. We're going to talk a little bit of hoops. I've got social media standouts. I got Jason Suchomel. I got an action-packed show. There's no reason for you to do anywhere. Forget about work. Just stay here. I got you covered.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at maybe the best thing Charlie Strong ever produced for the Texas football program. What is that, you ask? Identifying Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback of choice for the 2017 recruiting class and then landing his commitment. For those who might not remember, Ehlinger finished as the nation's number 115th overall prospect in the 2017 Rivals recruiting rankings, the 17th best player in the state of Texas, and the number 5 dual threat quarterback in the country. While Rivals eventually came around on Ehlinger, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit for ranking Ehlinger as a top 10 prospect in the state and the number 1 quarterback in Texas before he ever received a scholarship offer. SMU was technically the first school to offer Ehlinger, but it's important to note that right after the Mustangs came after him with an offer, Houston head coach Tom Herman followed. Not long after Herman offered, Ehlinger received his first Power 5 offer from Charlie Strong and the Texas Longhorns, an offer Texas fans have been anticipating since a terrific display by Ehlinger at the Texas Elite Quarterback Academy in mid-June. According to Ehlinger, Texas OC Sean Watson told him that they weren't going to offer any other quarterbacks in the 2017 recruiting class. Quote, "They're not going to offer anybody else," end quote, Ehlinger said. 9 days later, the lifelong Texas Longhorn fan, you might have heard about that over the years that followed, committed to the Longhorns. Quote, "Been a Longhorn since day one. I'm truly blessed to say that I'm committed to the University of Texas," Ehlinger announced on Twitter. There wasn't a lot to Ehlinger's recruitment for the better part of the next 16 months as he finished his junior season, competed at the Elite 11 finals going into his senior year, and then went on to begin his senior season in 2016 at Westlake without any distractions. Yet a thumb injury ended his senior season prematurely at Westlake, and it coincided with a horrible 5-7 year for the Longhorns that ended with Strong's dismissal. Suddenly, there was some doubt about his future for a day or two. Almost as soon as Tom Herman was announced as the Texas head coach, he met with Ehlinger to ensure that the player he first offered nearly a year and a half earlier, and before Texas ever offered, knew that he was at the center of all of his plans while on the 40 acres. Following that meeting, Ehlinger locked back into his commitment, and the rest is Longhorns history. Ehlinger was the best part of a 2017 recruiting class that Ehlinger often joked was nicknamed the shit-stain class because of the small reputation it had upon its rival. It ended up being a class that produced 4 NFL players: Ehlinger, Sam Cosmi, Taquan Graham, and Josh Thompson.
Okay, and welcome back here. I'm going to try to do some buy or sell things. We're having a little bit of a glitch in our studio at this moment, but I think we should be able to pull off buy or sell. I think we should be all right with that. So we're going to do our best, but I think Blake's got the questions ready to go. So Blake, let's try this thing. Let's see if this thing goes over well. Okay, we got it. All right, we got it. All right. We got that portion of it. All right. In the super chat, Chris Denman gets in 5 bones. He's got 5 on it. Appreciate you, Chris. What's up, Anwar? What's up, Chris? Good morning to you. Thank you. Those $5 go a long way to get my son to London. Hey, every dollar counts. I got to get my son to London in November. I've already bought the tickets, but that sure help pay down that credit card bill. So, for those you don't know, my son's going to London. He's selected to participate in some PSG training. If you don't know, don't follow soccer, don't worry about it. So he asked me, what's up, Anwar? Jalen Catalong will make a big impact on the defense. Buy or sell? I am buying this thing, Chris. I am buying, and I'm buying. And let's talk about it. I'll break it down and want to hear it. Here we go. So the thing about Jalen Catalong was, again, not practicing a lot in the spring for a lot of us, especially for myself. I'm like, well, what should we expect of him? I'll tell you, since he's been back, especially training camp, he's a bonfire. Now, he's not a big guy. Like, let me see what they have him listed at. Let me check this. Let's check this roster. Yeah, 5'10". Yeah, so that, yeah, my eyes are not lying. Don't deceive me. 5'10", 202. So not the tallest guy that's out there. So, but effective for sure. He's got great footwork. When I've seen him in practice, he's got really great footwork. He's got good stop ability, good to get in and out of breaks. I think he's being able to backpedal, kind of track the ball, things to that effect. Like, I feel really good about him. Feel really good about Jaron Thompson. I think Jalen Catalong is doing a really, really good job. If he's not there, I venture to say a guy like Derek Williams could be challenging to start the season at the safety position. But he appears to be solid. He has kind of the faith of the staff. Everyone that I talk to about him really likes him, says a lot of good things, a lot of positive things about him. So Jalen Catalong is definitely a person that's going to have an impact on this defense. And you got to think too, the offense struggled a little bit in that scrimmage on Saturday. That's because the defense played well. So we didn't hear things about like the ball going on top, over the top of anybody's head. Like we didn't hear anything to that effect. And so we're not hearing about the ball going on top, over top of anyone's head. That means the safeties are doing their job, right? Because sometimes you're looking for the interceptions, and sometimes it goes deeper than just the interceptions. It's like, who gave up the big players or busted plays? We didn't hear anything about that on Saturday, and that's kind of a result of Jalen Catalog. So very good question, Chris. I absolutely appreciate you putting that in there. My man, SEC Matt. That's my guy. That's my guy. That's my guy. I gotta get Big 12. Big 12 Horn? What is that name? I gotta get him to change it to something, man. I'm really worried about him. I will tell him this all the time. But anyway, SEC Matt, my dude. Good morning to you. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're having a good week as well. Happy Taco Tuesday, Unc. Good morning. That's for all you guys. And I used to have Drunk Unc Sports podcast on Wednesday nights. So you guys, everyone can refer to me as Unc as this moment at all time. It's still Unc. We just tame it down just a little bit, but still give you the energy that you want. Buy or sell. Using Malik in something like the 18-wheeler package. I am going to sell. Why'd you ask me a question like that? No. SC say, man, you are my guy. You were my guy until you asked me that question. Now you still my dude. No, that's not Malik. That's not what you want. First of all, there's a couple of things. Tyrone Swoops had to go to the 18-wheeler package because Tyrone Swoops wasn't a quarterback anymore. Like, he just wasn't. Like, they had to find a way to eventually just kind of make him effective. And so the only way to make him somewhat effective would it be to say, put him in this little 18-wheeler package. And of course, he goes to the NFL. He plays tight end for a few years. I don't know if he's still on the roster or not. That's not Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy is he's not a runner. He's big, but that's not his game. Malik's not known for that. Malik is a passer. And don't let all this huge muscle confuse you. Remember, Sark talked about Orange running 20 miles an hour. He didn't say anything about Malik running that fast. So no, and the thing is, why you don't want that, SEC Matt, is that you don't want your quarterback getting hurt. Like that, you can't risk that. Like, he's your backup at this moment. So the last thing you need to do is put him in something to that effect. Malik Murphy wants to play in the NFL, and he wants to be a quarterback. Like, he doesn't want to be a tight end. He wants to be a quarterback. You got to let him play quarterback. So putting him in something like that and subjecting him to hurt, or and having your backup hurt over something like that, when you've got a stable of running backs, I just told you about all the tight ends that they have. Like, they've got enough tight ends. Like, they've got enough people. They've got Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy played running. Did you know Byron Murphy played running back up until his freshman year of high school? Did you guys know that? Last year, when you saw him in a couple of run packages, it's because Byron Murphy actually used to be a running back. Now, when we asked, like, well, what happened? He's like, well, I ate myself out of the position. Well, clearly, you ate yourself out of the position. So Byron Murphy's a guy. So you've got tons of people who can do that. But the last thing you want to do is risk Malik getting hurt just for something as simplistic as that. You need him to be ready to be your backup. You're still my guy. You my boy, Blue. You my boy. Ask me that again, SEC Matt. Don't ask me that. Try to get your quarterbacks hurt for no particular reason. All right, what else we got? Mike Welch. You better not do what SEC Matt did. Well, I'm gonna be walking down Bevo Boulevard. Some guy's gonna cock me in the face, and I don't even know. And I'm like, who is that? He's like, it's SEC Mike. I was like, oh man, I can't believe he hit me in the face. So I'm just like, where's the folding chair? I hear that's the weapon of choice nowadays. So anyway, buy or sell. Ewers will have a season that gets him an invite to New York at the end of the season. The reason I'm going to sell on that is I think those numbers, and look, I've been asked this before. And I'm close because I think Texas is going to have a good season, and I think if Texas has a good season, that's going to help the quarterback play. Like you've got to have, unless you're putting up just crazy numbers, like you've got to have a good season. Kind of correlates with that. I think Texas will have a good season. The challenge is, I feel like Caleb Williams is already a shoo-in. I feel like Michael Penix is already going to be a guy that's there. I feel like Drake Mays has got a little bit of that hype there as well. So, like, as far as preseason hype is concerned. So I feel like there's guys. So it's almost like for me, Quinn is going to have to outperform those guys who already have the hype. That also means I think that he's going to have a big win under his belt. So I think a win against Alabama on the road. Now, so here's the thing. If they beat Alabama on the road and Quinn throws for, 325, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, whatever the case may be. He does something like that, then all of a sudden he probably is on the Heisman watch. All of a sudden he's a guy that you say to yourself, okay, got to pay attention because, Quinn's coming. The challenge is, unless all that happens, I just don't know, Mike. And so I'm going to sell on it for right now. I mean, as far as the Heisman is concerned, but what I'm telling you is I'm not taking it off the table. What I'm just saying is there's so many little things that are going to have to fall into place for that to happen that I'm just not quite sure that it will. But it's on the table. Ask me that question after the Bama game, and I definitely will have a more concrete answer for you. That Bama game will determine everything for me. Buy or sell from CW, just as simplistic as CW. Good morning to you, CW. Absolutely appreciate you. Malik is the game 1 starter next year. Okay, so let me preface this by, you guys know, this is a tough one because I like Malik, but also like Arch, right? So just so we're clear, like I like both of them. And if we're keeping it a buck, with you, I covered and wrote more about Arch in his recruitment than I ever did Malik. So I'm a little bit more familiar with their camp, and I'm a little bit more familiar with, the inner workings and it, so we're clear, as far as like, where, wherever my head is at, like, because I think there'll be an assumption that I'm a Malik guy, kind of like there's assumption like I was a Casey guy or something to that effect, like that I was a Swoops guy, So let's not do that. But I just want to take that off the table. I'm going to sell on Malik being the game 1 starter next year, and here's why. And I'm just going to do the simple math on this. If Malik is the game 1 starter, that puts Sarkisian at risk of potentially having Arch go into the transfer portal. And I'm just going to keep it 100 as 100 with you. I'm just going to shoot straight with you. Steve Sarkisian doesn't get in any hot seats, and no one talks about Steve Sarkisian and the future of Steve Sarkisian and where this program is headed if Malik Murphy goes into the transfer portal. But you know what would spark that conversation is if Arch went into the transfer portal. That would be Armageddon. Like, you can't, I don't want you to imagine that fate, but that's the Armageddon that you don't want. No, if Malik goes, people will say, okay, man, good luck to you. It'll kind of be like when it was that quarterback that went over to Utah. He left Texas and he's still there. I forget his name at this, this exact point. But he came in with Casey Thompson. In any case, when he left, everyone said, all right, well, good luck to you, right? And then I think if Malik left, I think people say, good luck to you. We understand. Like, I don't think anyone would be mad at him if he left. I think everyone would understand the big picture as relates to that. But if Arch left, you talk about hell to pay? You talk about having an answer for that? That's a national story if that guy leaves. That is a national story. Not just ESPN and Fox. I'm talking about that's on all kinds of casual websites. People will be talking about that. So no, like, that's why I wish Malik all the best. But I just think it's going to be really tough for him. I just really do believe it's going to be tough for him, and not just because of politics, but also because I believe, because not this politics. So I don't think it's a political thing that could play a factor, but I also think Arch is pretty good. And by the way, and let me just say one last thing as it relates to that. It's okay to have two good quarterbacks. That's not a. It's okay to say I think both of those guys are good. I may think another person is going to be better. I think Arch probably is going to be better. I'm not sleeping on Malik by any stretch of imagination. I want the young man to be successful. I just don't know if it's going to be here at Texas. Buy or sell from Allen. We hold all teams under 20 points. Allen, what are you guys asking me today? What is going on? I got an 18-wheeler package. Now I've got, you going to hold every team under 20 points? Are you playing OU every single week? If you play OU every single week, then maybe that's a possibility, right? No, you're going to play Rice every single week or Wyoming or something like that. But no, you're not going to hold every team under 20 points. That's a hard task to do. Like that, you're talking about having an elite defense against, your programs just score points. Like just what's going to happen. Like Kansas is going to score points and Texas Tech is going to score points and Bama's probably, I don't know. I don't know about them. I'm not as sold on them scoring as many points, but the other programs are going to score some points. And so at the end of the day, like, no, I gotta sell. That's an easy sell for me. This message, guys. I love y'all. Aaron, 11-1 is more likely than 8-4. Buy or sell. Whew, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with reporters about this yesterday. Man, Aaron, I wish you had said something like 10-2 and cut it in the middle, because you wish you had said 7-5, right? Because listen, 8-4 should be the floor, but the floor, if we keep in the floor is achievable. I can give you the reasons why the floor can happen, but if you're saying 11-1, like that's the thing, like, and this is a great question because I got to think as I talk this out. So I got to talk this out. We got to talk this one out, okay? I'm taught past my break, and it's fine. It's fine. We're free flowing. Blake and I do this. It's fine. It's quite all right. 11-1. You're talking about a jump from 8 to 11. So you're talking about a 3-game jump. We talk about we think about last season. The things that happened. Tech happens. Iowa State was a game that, they could have lost, very easily. There's games you could win, games you could lose. But 8-4, like, here's how I could talk myself into an 8-4, which, by the way, would be catastrophic. And it would be horrible by any stretch of the imagination, right? It would just be absolutely horrible. No one's going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy to be doing the shows in December. Like, it's not going to be fun. I can talk myself into it. I can talk myself into running backs who we got to see what they do. I can talk myself into, trying to see that, the defense, unproven defensive line. And I can talk myself into those things. I can talk myself into some young players trying to learn their way through it. Anthony Hill trying to learn his way through it. I feel good about the DBs. I wowould say that probably I'm going to buy that 11-1 is more likely than 8-4. Because I think 9-10 is probably that range more than like, but I think 11-1 is on the table just because of certain things. But I'm not taking 8-4 is not something I just look at and say that can't happen. I don't want it to happen because I don't want to have to deal with you guys at 8-4. That'd be horrible. It's a good ass question though. It's a really good question. It's another. It's a question. It's such a good question. Honestly, I want you to ask me that again later this week when I've had a little bit more time to think about it and analyze it. That's how good the question is. So ask it to me again, and we're going to put it back up on the screen, okay? It's a really, really good question. Super chat from DM, because it goes down in the DMs. You were struggled with footwork last year. What are you seeing or hearing in regards to him improving on this? Working on it, or is he just a Favre type? So yeah, the footwork thing has definitely been something that they have talked about him working on, and have talked about the pocket presence, issue, and being more comfortable, within that, and looking down, sort of. So there's a couple of different things that are related, to this, the whole football thing. First of all, it's getting in better shape. So that thing has had to happen, and that's thing he's done. We talked about the health, we talked about the nutrition, like we've talked about like the attitude, all those kind of things. So those things help him as far as just being in better shape is concerned. Two, a little bit more comfort with the offense and the line itself, like knowing where everyone's going to be. I think three, you cannot ignore a couple of key things. One, having better receiving options that he had last year. It's hard sometimes to get comfortable if you only got one guy that can get open, and you don't have the timing with him, and then everybody else is just kind of there. So that and no disrespect, Texas' longest pass last season was 49 yards. It was to Casey Kane. It was at the Alamo Bowl versus Washington. It was kind of a Hail Mary at the end of the day. So all that happened. Okay. So, but I've heard about that. They have worked on it. He's worked on it with his quarterback coach, who's also the same quarterback coach for Patrick Mahomes, as you guys have seen in the series. So they have worked on that as far as the footwork is concerned, as far as the accuracy is concerned. And Sark has said that he feels like he's a much better quarterback. So there actually has been work on that's done on that. Now, that being said, this is in practice and no one's hitting you. So you won't know, DM, and we won't know the fullness of it until someone can actually take his head off. Now, when someone can actually take his head off, then we'll absolutely know, okay, this is there. But we got to get to a point where he actually gets hit, because the rush, he knows no one's going to hit him unless that person wants to be on the bench. Now, if you want to get on the bench, go ahead and take it out of the quarterback. But unless you want to do that, so that's the thing when we don't know. So I can tell you that the foundation has been laid. We won't know until the season opener how that really looks. But it's a really, really good question. Let's go. Jose Gamboa. Good morning to you, Jose. I appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate the $5 in the super chat. So thank you so much for that. Jose Gamboa, Oklahoma hype for this year. What is that? Okay. I'm a little confused as to what that means. Is Blake, you got to understand, Jose, you may need to explain what you are doing now. Are you asking if there's Oklahoma hype for this year? Am I buying the hype? If you're asking me if I'm buying the hype for this year, no. I'm not. I'm buying nothing Oklahoma related at this moment. Like, no, I'm not even buying the recruiting at this moment. They just lost out on a guy to Mizzou. Like, I was like, oh, Venables can recruit. Venables can recruit. And I'm like, they just lost a guy to Mizzou. Like, I'm not sold on that. No, I'm not. We'll get into this, and so I don't want to spoil a little bit of what I'm going to do with some of the social media standouts, but I'll give you a little. I'll just give you a little bit right now. Oklahoma ends up being ranked in the AP top 25. And you know what's so fascinating about that? People will say, well, why is Texas ranked in number 11 in the AP poll? And like, what have they done to deserve that? And how, coming off an 8-win season, why is Texas ranked? Well, why the hell is a team with a losing record like ranked in the top 25? Can we ask that question as well, or does that question not get answered? Because that becomes the thing for me as it relates to Oklahoma. You can say whatever you want to say about Sarkisian. You can say whatever you want to say about these Texas Longhorns. You can talk about all the things that they need to prove and improve on. Like, I get all of that, right? But at the end of the day, like, I can look at Oklahoma and say the exact same things. I'm talking about exact same things. So no, I'm not buying the hype of anything Oklahoma related. Not at all. No way, no how. You can miss me with that one. Michael Bilski, how are you, by the way? Hey, Blake, can you do me a favor, by the way, while you're working on that? I didn't send Keenan the link. Can you do that for me? Thank you. I realize we're getting close to him, and so I appreciate that. But Michael Bilski says, okay, he says in the super chat, Texas makes it into the college football playoffs. Okay, well, that's your statement. And so now let's go into making this into a buy or sell for me. Unless you just want to say it, but I want to comment on that too. Texas makes it in the college football playoffs. It's going to be another one when I'm going to sell, but not take that totally off the table until the Alabama game is played. And if Texas goes to beat Alabama, then everything's on the table. And I do believe Texas has a good opportunity to beat Alabama. The Alabama game, just so you know where I stand, it's not really the game that I look at and I'm telling myself, man, I don't know if Texas is ready for that. That's not how I view the Alabama game at all. Total opposite. I think Texas is going to be ready. I think they're going to come hype. I know they're going to talk about in Tuscaloosa and all these kind of things. I know Texas can play with Alabama. I just know that. In fact, I have a friend. Blake, I didn't tell you this. I got a friend. I won't tell you his name, but one of my friends. You guys would know the name if you wouldn't. And so we were talking, and that person was so convinced that Bama is going to beat Texas. I was like, all right, do you want to put something on it? And then he goes, yeah, I'll, whatever. I was like, well, listen, we can bet straight up. He goes, man, I'll give you points. I said, okay, well, the line is Bama by 7. He goes, I'll give you 10. I said, let's do it for 100. He's like, absolutely. I said, you're going to give me 10 versus Bama? And he starts to proceeds to tell me how he thinks Texas is going to get curb stomped. I'm taking that 100. And I'm going out to a steakhouse the week after that Tuscaloosa. I am going to a steakhouse. I'm going to get me some old fashions. I'm going to get me a nice little, I'm going to be probably by Steiner Ranch Steakhouse. I'll invite you guys out. You guys want to come to a Steiner Ranch Steakhouse with me? I will be there probably on that Monday afterwards, Victory Monday. They don't make the best old fashions though. I gotta say they have a fantastic steak. They don't make the best old fashions though. It's really disappointing, Steiner Ranch Steakhouse. I need you guys to step that up. But nonetheless, that's what it is. Okay, Blake, are we done with buy or sell? Are we done? Okay, well listen, let's do a quick pause for the cause. We'll come back. I've got Keenan coming up for the next 15 minutes or so, actually 10 minutes or so. We're going to talk a little bit of hoops, so don't go anywhere because, listen, at the end of the day, you guys also got a 5-star basketball player. There's a lot of good things going on the 40 acres. And so we're going to make sure we cover it all in this show. So don't go anywhere. I want to talk about freshmen. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of fun stuff. And I still got my social media standouts that I have to get to. Jason Suchomel is coming with recruiting. Lots of good things going on this Tuesday the 15th. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at a player that was the first commitment of the TCU class of 2020 and became the last signing of the Texas 2020 recruiting class with a little stopover in Waco in between. That's right, Texas senior defensive back Jahdae Barron had one hell of a recruitment before eventually developing into one of the most important remaining players from a somewhat disastrous 2020 recruiting class. For those that might not remember, Barron finished as a mid 3-star prospect in the Rivals.com rankings while finishing 79th in the state and 72nd in the country as a cornerback. Should note for the record that I had Barron ranked as a 4-star prospect in my rankings and the number 30 overall prospect in the state. When we look at his recruitment, things really started to heat up following a junior day visit in February of 2019 to TCU and Gary Patterson. After visiting on the junior day in February, Barron committed just a couple of weeks later, citing that Patterson's track record of developing players was a big reason for his decision. Yet a little more than a month later, Barron backed out of his commitment to Patterson, primarily because his offer list started to take off shortly after his commitment, with the likes of Oklahoma State, Tennessee, and Arizona jumping into the mix. Before his decommitment, he actually took an unofficial visit to the 40 acres, although the Longhorns didn't offer. Fast forward to June 22nd, and Barron announced his commitment to Baylor. From that moment on, all the way through the rest of signing day, Barron was solid as a rock to the Bears, even in the aftermath of the departure of Baylor head coach Matt Rule. Things changed for Barron in April as he asked for Baylor to release him from his national letter of intent. Quote, Thank you to the Baylor Nation for embracing me, he said on Twitter. Today, I requested an official release from my NLI to Baylor and will begin looking for a new school to pursue my athletic dreams and career goals. 8 days later, Barron committed to Tom Herman's Texas Longhorns. Flipping Barron was a huge win for defensive backs coach Jay Valai, who had only been in Austin for a few months when he landed Barron. Barron was the 20th and final signee to a 2020 recruiting class that finished 16th in the nation. While Bijan Robinson is famously remembered as the headliner of the class, Barron was one of the 3 lowest rated prospects in the entire group, according to Rivals.com. Of the 2 players ranked lower than Barron, one of them was none other than All-America linebacker Jalen Ford.
Now, Jalen Ford's a guy that everyone's talking about in camp. You know, he continues to do. And let me tell you, I saw him, I think it was last week. And when I kind of talk a lot about the strength and conditioning program and things that the gains that people have made, he looks even stronger than he did last year. You know, from a physical standpoint, but I mean, like, even from upper to lower body, you can tell like he's been putting in a lot of the work and made a lot of gains. So, you know, he's a guy definitely to keep an eye on going forward. Within the next 5 minutes, we have Keenan Womack on. We'll talk a little bit of hoops with him as well. So let's talk about one of the things that Sark talked about yesterday. Then we try to see how many topics I can get into and kind of reiterating some of the things that I have reported over the weekend as well. So one of the things that has happened, I don't know how much you guys are aware of that, when Texas has been having practice, Sark has been having these guys out in that heat. Like that bubble has just been just what that is. It's a bubble. It ain't popping. They're popping on the outside. And one of the things that he's been really intentional about as far as making sure they practice is he's trying to get them ready for the regular season. We are in a crazy, crazy heat wave here in Texas. Like it's ridiculous as how hot it is. Like I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know what rain looks like anymore. Is there even a Lake Travis? Like, does Lake Travis even exist? Like, every time I drive past some of the outer portions of it, I mean, I just see things that are just dried up boat docks that you can just walk on. Like, it's just crazy. We can see the land that's down there. And Sark has been kind of telling himself, like, and telling the guys, like, no, this is something we got to get ready for. We got to get ready for that heat. We can see the Park sent me out something the other day talking about how I need to. We're going to one watering a week is what they tried to say. One. I'm like, well, you come in my backyard at 3:00 in the morning and find out. So no, but still, like that, they're doing that water restrictions and things to that effect. And so Sark has kind of been like, listen, these guys are got to get used to heat. They kick off versus Rice at 2:30 a.m. And it's made it very clear, like, man, these guys, you've got to be ready to go. And so, so he's been practicing out in the heat. And in fact, they have a scrimmage this upcoming Saturday. And what time is that scrimmage going to start? 2:30 p.m. And the other thing that he's made very clear about that is when the kids start school next week, that, hey, they're going to be having classes in the morning. So it's very important. And he just wants to get as many of these hot practices out of the way so you don't have guys super dehydrated and falling out and needing IVs and everything. Now, look, we know that come that season opener, that Saturday, guys are going to be cramping up, right? Remember back in the day, you cramp up and, you know, you have to drink that pickle juice. Like that thing would happen. Hey, Blake, do me a favor, reach out to Catch for me and let him know, and then he'll take care of that on that end, okay? And you guys had to remember pickle juice. That'd be the thing for cramps. Like they don't have that thing anymore. So we don't and so that's kind of how things are. So listen, so this is what he's talked about. He talked about that scrimmage yesterday that was on Saturday, was out in the heat. It started about 9:45, finished up somewhere around noon, but by around 11 o'clock, 11:30, it's getting hot. It's getting absolutely hot. And this is what one of the things that Sark said. He goes, I think a couple of things critically that I talked to the team about. First is, we're in really good condition. Our guys can run. They're in great shape. But there's a difference in being able to run, and there's a difference in being in game shape. Games last 3.5 hours. So when you're in the locker room, the sideline, back in, we have to condition ourselves better for that. He goes, and what I mean by that is maintaining a level of consistency in our play, maintaining the mental intensity needed in the second half into the fourth quarter, goes maintaining that focus so we don't have some of the breakdowns that we had early in the scrimmage, that we didn't have early in the scrimmage. Because that's something that we worked on today. And by today, he was talking about Monday during practice with the guys, and they really responded. Because I told them I was really proud of them. Just the way that they responded on how taxing it was. Going in the afternoon and practicing for a little over 2 hours in the heat. And I thought the last period was really done well by them. So the good part is, so you guys, when you are out there, you guys won't have to worry about, you guys have to be the ones that actually will worry about the heat. Those guys should hopefully be better off and better well-trained and be better prepared in order to handle all of that. Now, one of the other things that Sarkisian talked about yesterday, the things that he felt like they needed to clean up was the pre-snap penalties. He said that happened too often during the scrimmage, right? And he said it was one too many false starts, one too many illegal procedures. Like he said, that thing has happened. And so that's one of the things that they kind of worked on, one of the things that they're really trying to clean up. And that thing happened yesterday. So that one of the things that, you could see, all right. And it makes sense because we saw that last year. Like we saw, you saw the false start, the pre-snap, the things like that. They went at crucial moments last season when you say to yourself, like, that can't happen, that shouldn't happen, but that did happen. So, but he did praise the defense, Sark did, for creating turnovers, and that's the thing that kind of ends up being like the hidden sauce, the secret sauce of everything that's been going on in the offseason. And I think we've focused in a lot on. And I focused in a lot on, the offense, right? So we've talked a lot about Quinn. We've talked about Jonte. We've talked about Xavier, right? We've talked about the offensive line and DJ Campbell getting inside and Kelvin Banks and all that kind of stuff. Like we've talked about that those guys growing. We've talked about the running backs and what that running back room is going to look like. We've talked a lot about those things. But low key, what we haven't really discussed, and I think this is the thing that has to be somewhat encouraging for you guys, is that what's encouraging is that the defense is playing well, that the defense is doing their thing, that the defense is standing out. It's like kind of one of the things that Ketch and I talked about yesterday. We talked about Pete K and how much credit or lack of credit that he deserves or doesn't deserve, and how much really he doesn't necessarily get the credit that he deserves. But at the end of the day, the defense is playing extremely well, and the defense was able to create 3 turnovers in that scrimmage yesterday. And those turnovers were so just so we're clear, those turnovers is an interception by Malik Muhammad, who also he forced a fumble. So Malik Muhammad creates 2 turnovers in the scrimmage yesterday. He had in the forced fumble that's the one when I reported that he forced that fumble where Jatavian Sanders got about like 12, 15 yards down the field, and he went ahead and punched that thing out. So that's a Malik Muhammad thing. And then Leona Lafau recovered it. And then Jaron Thompson snagged an interception right before the 2-minute drill. And so that thing absolutely happened as well. Blake, I just got to say, okay, I'm going to calm down. Keenan keeps asking me about a link. He already has a link. He sent him the link. I'm getting damn near close to canceling him and not having him on. It's agitating me. These things keep popping up while I'm trying to talk. So he was supposed to be on like 5 minutes ago. So if you can handle that behind the scenes, I appreciate it. But right now, he is working my nerves right now. Just telling you. All right, super chat. Triplet Joseph. He says, I'm new to Austin. He goes, does Texas have an open practice like some schools? So realistically, the only really open practice that they have is in the spring. I know a lot of you guys were thinking that this open practice was going to happen sometime during training camp. But at the end of that didn't happen. I don't know why that became a thing that I was talking about. Usually the spring practice is kind of the only open practice. There's some practices that are open. Now TCU. Now, if you guys want to become Horn fans, can't say that 3 times, let alone once. But if you want to become one of their fans, at the end of no, they're open. Blake, you believe this? They usually have every practice open to the fan base and the media. Every single practice. Texas ain't doing that. It's more than like we've had, I think, the first week and change of practice that is open to us, and then they're gonna shut that thing down. Like that just kind of is what it is. And they usually do about the same in the spring, a little bit more access in the spring. But no, you will not be able to see it. That's just some fan bases are like that. Not some fan bases, some programs are like that. Other programs are not. So, but good question, Triple. And by the way, new to Austin, welcome to Austin. By the way, I moved here in 2014. This is home for me. I ain't going nowhere. Y'all gonna have to bury me here. So I love it. Unless someone offered me like $1 million a year, then I'm out. Like, hey, catch has been real, but I'm really going to leave. So there is that. But nonetheless, no. Welcome to Austin. Hope you're enjoying yourself. And by the way, get familiar with people in the super chat. These people are very friendly. They'll help you out. They'll get you they'll get you everything that you need to know about it. And make sure you join Orangebloods and introduce yourself. And that will help you as well. Are there more super chats in there, Blake, or does Triple just want to get his thing out there? Okay, so we had that one as well. Sarkisian also talked about the importance of quarterbacks, basically, in defenders understanding like the rush lanes, especially on third downs. That was another area Sarkisian talked about trying to clean up. That's there. And that's when he talked about the Arch Manning thing, the Arch Manning run, right? Whereas Arch Manning had that opportunity and because of the defenders were just looking at other different places. Because of that, that's what opened up the lanes. So that's another thing that they want to kind of seal up. They want to kind of tighten up. They want to kind of get that thing, handled and taken care of. So it looks like Keenan is ready. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to get my woosah on here. And let's go ahead and go to the Speakeasy Lounge.
What's up?
Hello, Keenan. How are you?
Dude, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for being early.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
my bad, dude.
That's okay. So the reason I wanted to have you on, Keenan, is that there's been some things that have happened with hoops recently that we haven't discussed. It is, we had spring practice over the weekend, and that's been taking a lot of the headlines. And obviously the Colin Simmons thing has happened, and that was a big thing of last week. And so we've had a lot of that stuff that's going on. And meanwhile, Rodney Terry picks up a commit from a 5-star. It's kind of like golf clap. And it's like, wait a second, that's actually a huge thing for Rodney Terry in this program. So go ahead and break it down. Tell everybody what, just the floor is yours. But give everybody the breakdown of what has been going on with this basketball program over the last, 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah, man. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. So a lot of big developments in the last few hours, or last 48, 72 hours. So the big commitment was on Friday. They landed Lexington, South Carolina shooting guard Cam Scott, who Texas has been on Cam Scott for a couple of years now. Chris Beard initially was his lead recruiter. And he actually came to campus, did a visit in, I think, December or November. I can't remember whether the thing had gone down with Chris Beard or not at the time. But He is a 5-star according to Rivals. He's borderline top 10. I talked to Rob Cassidy of Rivals, and he told me that when Cam Scott played at the Pangos All-American camp, he was pretty much the best scorer there, like pretty obviously. He's just very, very advanced offensively. Good 3-level scorer. He's pretty explosive athletically. The reason he kind of slipped a little bit on some of the other sites is he had sort of a rough camp at Peach Jam. He wasn't great at Peach Jam. I think he shot 35% over 6 games, which is not ideal. And he wasn't great defensively. But at Pangos, he was the most impressive scorer overall. That's what got him into the 5-star range. That's why he's a borderline top 10 player, according to Rivals. And that's why it's such a big pickup for Texas.
And it becomes a bigger pickup too, Keenan, because when Rodney Terry gets the job, he ends up losing Ron Holland. He loses A.J. Johnson. And that becomes a thing that people are like, he lost 2 5-stars. And so it becomes that question of, did Texas make the right decision? Did Texas do the right thing by hiring this person? Because he immediately gets in here and he loses two premier guys. Tell me now, with the addition of Cam, what does that do for you as far as your view of Rodney Terry as a recruiter?
Yeah, so when the AJ Johnson and Ron Holland situation sort of went down, people were trying to blame that on, they would have played for the former coach. I was very much involved in like when this was going on. I had a lot of sources telling me what was happening. It really wasn't as much as people think the fact that Terry was the new head coach. It really wasn't. Even if the former head coach was still there, I think there's a very good chance both of those guys still would have gone pro, because basically Holland's they were kind of after the bag, which is totally fine if you're an athlete and that's on the table. I have no problem with going after the bag. Like, why not? You deserve it. So when he lost Holland to G League Ignite, people were saying, oh, this is Terry's fault. I think we're just in a new era. I think, basketball's in this era now where it's the highest bidder. It's like pro basketball without the draft, essentially, is what it's become. But it's hard to turn down $500,000 when you're 18 years old. I could never blame a kid for doing that. It sort of happened in baseball a few years ago with the guy I went to high school with, Josh Bell, who signed with the Pirates eventually. And now I think he plays for the Nationals. But he wrote this letter to all the MLB teams right before the draft and said, don't draft me, I want to play college. And then the Pirates came along and they're like, you want a $5 million signing bonus? And he was like, okay. Can't get mad at a guy for that, So we're just in a new era. I think it's very important that he landed a guy that is a 5-star, but I don't think Cam Scott is a one and done. So I think he's going to be a guy that sticks around a couple of years. I think developing these guys is super important.
That's what I'm going to ask you. Like, yeah, but he's 2024. So what's to stop that someone throws a bag at him and says, hey, do you want to play in a developmental league? Do you want to play overseas? And then him basically weighing like an NIL option with Texas versus a professional option. Does this kind of become, as you talk about this whole new world, doesn't that kind of become the danger in some ways of recruiting some of these 5-stars, is they do have so many options?
Absolutely. It really is a new era where, I think if you're talking about, like, I think the reason Cam Scott is a big pickup is I don't think Cam Scott, like I said a second ago, I don't think he's a one and done. I don't think he would get an Ignite invite necessarily. You have to be like a top 10 guy across the board, because Rivals is kind of the outlier on the Cam Scott ranking. He's higher on Rivals than he is on some of the other sites. So I don't think he's the type of guy that G League Ignite is going to throw $500,000 at. So I think it's important to get these high 4-star, low 5-star guys. I think that's very important, because if you look at all these Final Four teams, it's one of those things where you can have a roster just loaded with young talent, but if you don't have these sort of advanced players, like age-wise, if you don't have guys that are juniors and seniors and fifth-year seniors on your team, it's going to be really hard to win in the tournament. If you look at last year's Texas team, it's a team that had a lot of tournament experience. All those guys had tournament experience. So it's important to have a mix of those two things.
So one of the things that Cam had said I thought was really interesting was that what he said, one of the things that impressed him, and one of the reasons why he wanted to play with Rodney Terry is because of everything that he went through last season. He talked about like, hey, this is a guy that was coming every single day. He didn't know if he's going to have a job or not, but he still showed up. and that impressed him about him. And I thought, well, first of all, that was a really mature response from a young man as far as like an appeal factor for the things where you gathered. Talk about that portion of it, and were there other things that he said attracted him to become a Texas Longhorn and play for Rodney Terry?
Yeah, well, first of all, I will say NIL probably helped a little bit.
That's all right.
Let's be real.
It is what it is.
We're in a time where these kids deserve to get paid, man. I have no problem with NIL. I think NIL is great. So, I've been for players getting paid forever. So I've never really had a problem with some of the guys who pay players. I'm like, whatever. So it doesn't affect them on the field. But I think what's important about this is, like you said, Rodney Terry's been through a lot. I mean, taking over in that situation is a huge ask. December 11th, December 12th, I think, is when the whole thing went down. And he's coaching that night against Rice. And I was there. And it was really weird. The energy in the building was really weird, man. And they almost lost to Rice. They went to overtime with Rice, who, in a typical game, they would have ran off the court in the first 20 minutes. But they won in overtime, and people were already saying, oh, this thing's doomed. They barely beat Rice. This thing's over. Chris Beard's gone. This thing's over. Rodney Terry steps in, and Texas is the best team in the Big 12 last year. They are. They win the Big 12 tournament. It's them and Kansas State. They both went to the Elite Eight. It's an extremely impressive story. But another thing that people really underrate is Rodney Terry is an excellent person-to-person relationship guy. Like, I tell this story all the time, but the first press conference of his as the head coach after the incident, he knew every single media member's name, every single one. I had met him one time, and that was a year prior. I had no idea he would know my name. He took the time to learn everybody's names. That's the kind of thing that matters in recruiting. That's the kind of thing that makes parents trust you. And Rodney Terry just seems like the perfect guy to lead this program at the moment. Despite all the horrible things that have happened, I think he's going to do a great job. He's already been doing a great job.
So they also announced yesterday that Texas is going to participate in this Empire Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Give the people an understanding of that. I know we're a little bit of ways away from basketball, but let's just have the conversation there. That was a kind of a press release. What do you know about this Empire Classic, and what can you tell the people out there about it?
Yeah, so it's a Madison Square Garden. I think it's either November or December. It's one of the I think it's early December. Something like that. But yeah, so Texas played in Madison Square Garden last year. They barely lost to Illinois in a really, really fun overtime game. I think it was their first loss of the season, actually, last year. But so the Empire Classic is awesome. They picked they picked three really good teams, and one team that is a blue blood that has been having some trouble in Louisville. So the first round of the Empire Classic will be UConn will play Indiana, and then Texas will play Louisville. So I think it's a good opportunity for Texas to blow out a blue blood on national television. So
okay, they're not good. You're saying it's not Rick Pitino's team, is what you're saying.
So Kenny Payne is going into his second year there, and last season was pretty much hands down the worst season they've ever had, like pretty much by a mile. They won 4 total games last year. They went 4-28. Louisville went 4-28 last year, and they're
my goodness. How did they get bad?
So a lot of things happened. A lot of it was, it's hard to recruit against Kentucky in that state, first of all, but it was a brand new system. They had a bunch of scholarship guys that wanted out. It was just a disaster. I mean, 2 of those wins were against Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman or something. Some other team that isn't ranked in the top 300, So I think it's a great opportunity for Texas to go out there, play against Louisville on national television, because Louisville also lost their leading scorer off last year's team, Ellis, who transferred to Arkansas, who was a 17 points per game guy. So not only are they lacking that, they also just had Trenton Flowers, who was a 5-star outside of Louisville. yesterday announced he dipped out. Now he's going to play in New Zealand in the NBL. So they got that news yesterday too. So it's kind of a disaster in Louisville, but it'll be a good opportunity for Texas to play on national television, beat a blue blood, and then if they win that game, they get to play either Indiana or UConn. That's awesome for recruiting those big games. Like, it's very important to play those kinds of national television games because basketball, football, so much of football recruiting is in the area, and so much of basketball recruiting is nationwide.
Makes sense. All right, so let me ask you a few more things. So also, again, we're just catching up. We'll do some housekeeping here. Just a few weeks ago, there's an announcement that Rodney Terry finalizes his staff. He brings in three guys, and Corey Schlesinger, the Byron Jones is one, and Nick Matson is another person. So for those who are unfamiliar, and to give those guys a little bit of love, like what can you tell us about, maybe first of all, who they replace, so those who are the average fans who don't know, and then what you can tell me about each one of those guys.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important hires is Corey Schlesinger, not to be confused with former Nebraska football player Corey Schlesinger, as many people, as soon as I told them, I got about 15 texts from dudes in their 50s, like, oh my gosh, I remember him. Different guy. So Schlesinger was with the Phoenix Suns, I think, for the last 3 years before he came to Texas. So he's replacing a very important cog in John Riley, who is, for my money, the best strength and conditioning guy in the country for basketball. He was at Texas the last couple of years, but he went to Ole Miss with Beard because they had a tight relationship. So that's a super important thing to fill that people don't talk about, is that conditioning, that strength coach. It's talked about in football quite a bit. It's not really talked about in basketball, but it's very important to have a guy that, because so much of basketball is like plyometrics, like dunking and like verticality, things like that. So it's really important to have a experienced guy. I think Schlesinger has been doing it for about 10 years now at a very high level. So I think that was a good hire. With the departure of Donald, they bring in Nick Matson, and then they bring in Byron Jones. So basically, these guys are part of the staff that Rodney Terry took a lot of Beard's staff, and it's kind of a Frankenstein's monster of coaches kind of thrown together. But I'm really impressed with the job that he did getting all these pretty well thought of assistants together on this staff. I think Texas basketball, it really is headed for more success under Rodney Terry. And yes, there are the arguments that no, he wasn't great when he was at UTEP or whatever. But I think I've drawn this comparison several times, and I think it makes a lot of sense for maybe the older football guys. Rodney Terry is very Mac Brown to me. He's very much a guy that is a fantastic recruiter, obviously knows the game very well, but plays a bit of a CEO role. And the relationships are very important that he cultivates, and people really respect him for that reason. So there are a lot worse guys you can be compared to than, one of the most beloved coaches in the history of Texas sports. So that's sort of who he reminds me of, sort of the vibe I get from him. And he's just a very personable guy. It's if you're a Texas fan, it's very easy to root for him.
So let me ask you this, though. Because you're still going to have people when the season happens are still going to have their question marks about Rodney Terry. Still, people will say, this is a team he inherited as opposed to a team that he built, right? And so, and I know Rodney Terry will tell you he had a hand in recruiting some of these people that are on the team. I was at one of these events in San Antonio, and he made that be clear. And I think I've seen him also in the offseason, hey, I recruited some of these guys, so don't act like I just walked in here. But I'm curious to me your belief system in Rodney Terry, because it seems like you have a good belief in him. Your belief system is based on what? Why do you have such confidence in him?
I think what he did last year, despite how good the team was, to take over when he did, he was just, there's no on deck circle for him. They just throw him to the wolves. He's been a head coach before, but not at Texas. It's different. This is a different thing. As you know, you've been covering Texas football forever. It's a different thing. At UT, athletics are very important. Okay. Sorry.
All right, don't make me old. You like forever. I'm not Kurt Bowles. It's been like 10 years.
I was not trying to insult you.
Golly. Go ahead. I'm just messing with you, Keenan.
Sorry. I did not mean to implicate that you are old. That was not my intention.
You said forever. Like, the way you said it didn't feel like forever.
It's like, all right, I think we need a new guest.
Slow down. It's been 10 years. Go ahead, Keenan.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But yeah, I mean, what impresses me about what Terry did last year, man, is, this offseason, sorry, is he took it in the shorts, man, over Holland and Johnson. That's huge. Ron Holland, I run in circles with a lot of NBA scouts, guys who are putting together big boards right now for the 2024 draft. Ron Holland is considered pretty much a bona fide top 3 pick. A lot of people have him number 1. He and his teammate Matas Puzelis, who plays G League Ignite guy. So he lost out on one of the best players in the country. And then AJ Johnson, who I think was a little overrated, to be honest. He was a 5-star. I don't know that he was maybe 5-star quality. But and then he bounces for the NBL, which is the New Zealand league. They have this thing called Rising Stars that pay you, I think, $500,000 to play a season. And it's good for the NBL because it gets people to come out and see it. It helps build the culture. The NBL is very cool, actually. But yeah, I think the reason I have faith in Terry is that he's a guy that will admit when he's like wrong. And that was my problem with Beard, is Beard doesn't let guys play through mistakes. He doesn't, he's kind of like too controlling in my mind sometimes as a coach. I'm not talking about anything off the court. I'm talking about just on the court stuff with Beard. He doesn't let guys play through mistakes, and I think that that's a super important difference between the two, is that Rodney Terry knows these guys are going to make mistakes. He's going to let them make mistakes because you have to if you want a guy to get better. So I think the reason I have so much faith in him is that he built this roster despite getting kicked in the groin a couple times in the offseason. So I'm really impressed. I think the Asmus pickup from Oral Roberts is gigantic. That guy is an absolute superstar. I wrote a piece comparing him to Jimmer Fredette about a month and a half ago. So that's a good thing.
That's high praise.
Yeah, it is. Asmus is averaged the fewest points per game he's averaged in his career is 22. So in college, he averaged 21.9. That was his lowest. So it's going to be fun. He's also a very good pick and roll passer. It's going to be really fun to see him and Mitchell and Dessou and Shedrick run the pick and roll. It's going to be fun.
Kid, I'm going to ask you 2 quick questions. I'll let you get out of here. Give me an idea of what the basketball schedule, kind of off-season schedule looks like. When did they kind of report? When did they start kind of working out? And when we will start seeing some progress there? First preseason game, things to that effect. If you got it off the top of your head.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have the exact dates, but I can give you a rough timeline. Sure. So last year, the first game at the Moody was October 29th against Arkansas. It wasn't an official game. It was like what do you call it? Like an exhibition, basically a glorified scrimmage. But so that was end of October. The season typically tips like the first week of November or around there. I think it started November 7th last year, November 9th or something. So yeah, and the off-season schedule, I'm not gonna lie, man, it's pretty disappointing. There's not a single marquee home game in this off-season really. Maybe there's one, but like, there's a lot of teams that are not in the Ken Palm top 300. There's 356 teams. They're playing a lot of teams that aren't. I mean, I'm just surprised they didn't try to get some kind of headliner home game for the preseason. They have this brand new arena. Even if it's not Duke, play Georgia Tech, play, UCLA. Like, there are a lot of teams out there that those games don't matter that much. It's just fun for the fans. I'm really disappointed in the off-season schedule, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, that's okay. I mean, so I got to look. Who are they playing? Like, now you got me extremely.
Well, curious. I don't want to call out specific schools for being weak.
I'm gonna call them out. I'm looking up the schedule right now. I'm gonna call them out. You don't have to do it because I don't have to cover it. I don't have to cover it. Okay,
trash.
All right. So we're talking Incarnate World, Delaware State, and Rice. That's what you're saying without saying.
That's not sexy at all.
Yes, and then you go into the Empire Classic, and you said
that's gonna be cool.
Yes, but you said Louisville's kind of trash.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got UConn or Indiana. Then after that is Wyoming, and then after that is Texas State.
Yeah.
You know, these are some of the things that are there. So Marquette, but then Marquette, that's fine, and then Houston Christian.
Marquette and LSU are pretty much the only real ones, but neither of those are at home.
Yeah, and then you got Houston Christian, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, rather. I said crispy. UNC Greensboro and UTA.
Yeah,
so wow, this is a hell of a schedule, dude.
They're like, if you combine those teams, they're gonna win like 30% of their games this year.
Oh wow! Wait. Hold on. Is this new? Like this? How in football they make schedules? Years in advance.
No, basketball is like very much like they'll schedule something a year out. Like it doesn't take, it's not months like in college football, like, oh, Texas plays Michigan in 2028 or whatever. That's typically not how they do it in basketball. It's a lot faster. It's a lot quicker. So there was definitely opportunities for them to play Oregon or play Purdue or play, I don't know, Florida State, just somebody who's a little sexy and just nothing for the fans at all. It's pretty lame. I don't know. Not great, Bob.
No, this is fast, and I'm glad you have mentioned that. Again, Keenan, I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the person. You don't have to be, because I understand how it is in the beat writer. You got to go, and people will say, "You
don't hurt anybody's feelings."
And then you were saying bad things. I'll say, man, this is a soft ass schedule, man. Like this is a let's just build up wins and build up our team confidence before the Big 12 tournament. Like that'll be the spin. But man, when we're talking about I know sometimes I speak fast, so sometimes I may skip over, a letter or two in the word. But when I go to the incarnate word and Delaware States and the Rices and Houston Christians and Corpus Christi and UNC. That's okay. That's trash. Well, it's good. Well, at least it should be pretty darn near undefeated at that point. So let me ask you.
The one thing I did want to say though is that with these kinds of like schedules, like I would much rather the team lose a close game to a really good team than beat Houston Christian by 50. It means a lot more to those players. They learn more from a loss to a good team than they do from blowing out a bad team, in my opinion.
All right. Last thing, I'll be the only person that's going to ask you this. So give me your thoughts on the football team this year. Do you got a win total in your mind for Steve Sarkisian heading into year 3, I guess?
Yeah. So, I've been following Texas football since I was a little kid. And, I went to college at UT. So I've been around for the whole thing, basically, since I've been alive. And, I have not felt this good about a Texas football team since like 2009. I felt really good about the 18 team that went to the Sugar Bowl. But I think this is one of the best wide receiver rooms they've ever had. I think if Ewers is 80% of what he's capable of being, this team wins the Big 12. I think this is my hottest take of the season. I think Ewers might set the single season passing touchdown record this year. I just think that's the kind of thing he's capable of doing. So bold prediction. I think they win the Big 12. I think they really upset everybody on the way to doing that. And super chat. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I think they're going to be really good, man. They're going to be really good.
Okay, give me a win. Give me a win total. Are you going 10?
Let's say 10. Yeah, I'll say 10-2. I think they probably lose to Alabama and then lose one conference game, and they play a New Year's Six game and win, and then all the momentum heading into the next season.
All right, Ben G asked a question. He said, Keenan, would you beef up the schedule or keep it the way it is to build chemistry with all the new faces?
No, man, I would definitely beef it up. You don't build chemistry by beating Delaware State. You beat chemistry by losing a close one to Illinois. You build chemistry by playing in close, important games early on before you get to the Big 12, which is a buzzsaw. Everybody knows Big 12 basketball. And now, with Big 12 basketball, guess who's in the conference this year? U of H. You get to play them now, too. So Central Florida wasn't even bad. They had a lottery pick last year. The Big 12 basketball is going to be a nightmare this year. And As funny as it is, it's like the opposite of the football season where it's like the Big 12 is kind of like full of scrubs in football. In basketball, it's just not as tough. The SEC is just not as tough as the Big 12. It's just not.
Oh, really?
They have their blue bloods. They have Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, but I'm excited for SEC basketball, man.
So wait. So SEC basketball not as good as Big 12. I'm clearly know it's a football conference. Who are the best SEC programs then? Just real quick.
I think Arkansas is going to win a natty pretty soon. They keep getting close. I think they're going to win a natty pretty soon, probably in the next 4 or 5 years. If Musselman stays there, I think they have a very good shot at winning a natty, or at least a Final Four. Obviously Kentucky, Florida. They've been up and down, but I really like their new hire. I think they're going to be good. Auburn's been great over the last few years. Alabama was great last year. So, I mean, it's not like a huge step down. It's not as physically taxing to play in the SEC as it is to play against Tech and Iowa State and Kansas. Like those teams, a lot of those teams slow it down, especially Tech now with McCasland. They had the slowest pace in the country last year, by far the slowest, slower than Virginia. So, if Chris Beard's offense was too exciting for you at Texas Tech, get ready for the McCasland era. He wins. It's just not sexy,
Fair enough. Well, Jeff Ketchum was in the chats earlier, and he said that your mustache was sexy. So he definitely absolutely enjoyed it. Yes. So you have redeemed yourself, Magnum PI. I absolutely appreciate you coming on. And Keenan Womack, make sure you guys give him a follow here. He's an Orangebloods guy, covers UT basketball, UT hoops for us. Did you know when to start practice, by the way? Do you know when they
pretty soon? I don't know the exact date, but very soon. I think they're doing some stuff now already. I don't know exactly what stage they're in.
Conditioning or something.
Yeah. They're definitely conditioning at this point.
Sounds good. All right, Keenan Womack, I appreciate you joining. Thank you so much. And I'll have Keenan on during the basketball season and after games to kind of break down the things that have happened, usually the night before. Apparently, when we look at the schedule, my God, what are we going to break down? I don't know if I want to come. Hey, man, tell us about that win against Incarnate Word. How about that tough matchup going up against Delaware State? Like, Keenan, give me your input about Texas State. What the Bobcats got for the Longhorns? Like, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. We'll have to figure this whole thing out. But we'll have them on nonetheless. Rogue Shop just popped up out of nowhere. Like, I guess, is that a Keenan reference? Is that a Keenan? Because there's been some questions in the chat. I was able to get in there, but nonetheless, I guess it's a Rogue Shop plug. Listen, it is Texas home for legal CBD, THC, and more. It's the rogueshop.com. My main man, Richard, who's usually in the chat, who was first today. He's the person that you guys got to hook up. Get out your phone in a second. I know sometimes it takes a second. I was throwing you off. Like, I need to do this thing. But get out your phone. You scan that thing in the QR. It's got everything for you. It's not just that I use it to go to sleep, just to get some sleep at night. Like, it's really tough for me sometimes to get a good night of sleep. So, the gummies are really good. You want to relax. You want to just enjoy yourself. Stressful day, all that kind of stuff. The Orangebloods staff is on it. So they've got salves that help you with all the aches and pains. It's a really good product. So check them out. All right. Let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick pause. So we've got Jason Suchomel coming up at 10:20 a.m. And he's going to talk about recruiting. There seems to be some stuff going on with Kobe Black. The winds are kind of blowing towards Texas's way. So I want to hear his input on that. Anything else recruiting-wise, practice notes, like all kinds of things. I'm going to talk to Jason Suchomel from Orangebloods.com. We'll see what kind of hat he's wearing today. We'll see if he's got a new one and brings out that Adidas hat. I don't know what the bet's going to be, but my bet's going to be the Adidas hat. He's got to be at the point where, I'm betting on the Adidas hat for Jason Suchomel. So let's do a quick break. We'll come back. We'll start doing some social media standouts at the top of the hour.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on the player generally considered to be the greatest Longhorn football player of all time. Vince Young was a five-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns in 2002, finishing as the #1 overall player in the nation. 20-plus years later, the two things that stand out the most about Young's recruitment was how much ground the Longhorns made up in a blink of an eye. Weeks before his senior season began in 2001, his mother reported that Texas was out. Quote, "We ruled out Texas as Vincent has decided that he probably won't stay in the state of Texas to play in college," Miss Young said. In just a matter of months following that statement by his mom, Vince Young was pretty much wrapped up to go to Texas. The other thing that stands out about Young's recruitment was just how big he was in the city of Houston. I went to a playoff game with Madison against Hightower in the Astrodome, and opposing fans were jumping up in the stands over the excitement that Young was creating. I wrote for Orangebloods.com at the time, quote, "At that point, the Astrodome crowd started to go crazy. People in the Hightower section were high-fiving each other, laughing, and screaming in amazement," end quote. It was unlike anything I've ever seen before or since. On the day he committed to the Longhorns in January, Vince said, quote, "There's a lot of love down there at Texas, and that's what I was looking for before I visited. They made my mom smile, and that's all I needed to see. I committed to them this afternoon." Young was the bell cow of a 2002 recruiting class that was ranked first in the nation and is regarded as one of the best in the history of the school. That class signed 6 five-star prospects, which also included Justin Blaylock and Roderick Wright. Ultimately, Young's class was the foundation of the 2005 national championship team.
And welcome back. You know what, Blake? I know I talked about social media standouts. I'm going to call it an audible. I'm going to go ahead and do that after Jason. I want to get us back on the football track and get some football conversation going here for all you people who are here. So let's talk football for a second. And let's go ahead and as we kind of go into this third hour here, I guess it's technically would be called fourth quarter blitz. We never put that up. I think I had a good idea for that, Blake. I don't even got to worry about it anymore. Let's just go. This is just the third hour, and let's just do what we do. And it's interesting because Steve Sarkisian has recruited very well, and when we start talking about people who are popular on the team. Right, the veterans are always the popular ones, but it's always the freshmen. There's the ones that we end up talking about a lot. It's always kind of like the backup quarterback is always kind of the most popular quarterback that's on the team. Well, the freshmen end up being usually who end up being the most popular people on the team, and for a good reason. It's kind of like springtime, right? It's like new hope, regenerate, and then like rejuvenated, and like all these kind of things. Like that's what happens with these freshmen. And so what becomes interesting when we've looked at some of these classes, kind of the 2023 class and the 2022 class, what we're seeing in this particular spring, the training camp, I keep wanting to say spring, but what we're seeing in this particular training camp is we're seeing some of the rise of the young guys, right? If there was a Star Wars movie, it'd be something to that effect. If everyone ever watched Disney, the Disney Plus channel, in which none of us watch it anymore, but we did, that it would be something to that effect, right? And there's been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter. So let's get into some of the young guys who have stood out, some of the young people who have been the folks that was here. And I've got tons and tons of notes that are here. So I want to make sure I try to get into all of them. But let's have a football conversation after we had a really good basketball conversation. I guess Keenan was able to redeem himself a little bit for being a little bit late, but nonetheless. So it starts off. Let's start with some of the studs and the positives, and I'll start with the most recent positive as far as the young people, as far as the freshmen is concerned, and the person who's grabbed the headlines since Saturday has been Malik Muhammad. Now, I've spoken to some people, about Malik Muhammad since that practice, and they've told me he covers on another level. Like they've told me, like he is absolutely on another level as far as coverage is concerned, as far as athleticism is concerned, as far as his body and his physique and his build. Like when I look at it, what did they've got Malik Muhammad listed at? Yeah, they've got him at 6'1", 181. But it looked a little bit smaller when I saw him beforehand, but I can definitely tell that he's getting stronger. But at the end of the day, the football skills are there. Malik Muhammad is a person that goes out in this past scrimmage who gets a pick six on Malik Murphy. It's kind of Malik on Malik crime, right there. Just one Malik to another. Because I don't give a damn. You got 2 A's in your name. I only got 1. Therefore, this is a pick six there. He gets a pick six, though. You know how you get attention? And you know how you start to rise up the depth charts is when you get into scrimmages like that and you do something like a pick six. Like, that's how you get everyone's attention. And that's how you get people talking about you. That's how you get coaches talking about you. And then you know how else you get that attention? Then not too long after that, you go ahead and force a fumble. And you force a fumble on Jatavian Sanders that gets recovered by Leona Lafau. Now, all of a sudden, they start talking about you. They start talking about you a whole lot more. Malik Murphy is a guy that is trending in the right direction this training camp. Tons of talent out there, by the way, just tons of talent. And he's one of the guys that's oozing with that talent that's out there. Of course, I've talked to you guys about Derek Williams. Derek Williams is a person that, Sarkisian praised previously, talked about how, this guy looked like a future first-round pick. He has not disappointed. Before Sarkisian started talking about, my sources were telling me about, Derek Williams behind the scenes doing everything to catch a lot of attention. And Derek Williams ends up being a person that is getting a lot of attention, a lot of positive attention. So you already got Malik Muhammad. Now you add in a little bit of a Derek Williams, and that is making a huge difference. I mean, Anthony Hill ends up being a guy that we're talking about. And people have talked, it's interesting because Anthony Hill is a person that, we heard recently that they said like he sometimes makes mistakes, but he makes it at full speed. But, and they just got to find a way to correct that with him. But Anthony Hill got some run with the first team on Saturday. And that's no small feat. That's no small feature, right? So knowing that Anthony Hill is coming, like Anthony Hill's a person that they believe and he's come off the edge and they believe like he's got that talent. He's a 5-star. So it's just a matter of time. He's knocking at the door. Will they let him in? Time will tell. But he's definitely has got their attention. And that's one of these things that if he could get this thing corrected and get just fine-tune the little things, and what he's got to be able to do is when you make mistakes, it's got to be mistakes that they can live with. Right? Everyone's going to make mistakes. That's okay, because I've learned this really from my son's basketball. To be quite honest with you, but it's learning from a kind of a coaching perspective, is that coaches will put the people in where that even if they make mistakes, it's the mistakes that they can live with. They don't put in the people that make the mistakes that they can't live with. Right? One of the things that they talked about as relates to Malik Murphy was he's making some mistakes, but he's doing really well. But the mistakes that he's making is he's not securing the ball. And if you don't secure the ball, that's a mistake that they can't live with. Like they can live with some other mistakes. That's fine. But you can't be creating turnovers. If you're creating turnovers, those are mistakes that they cannot live with. And those are the mistakes that don't get you on the field. And when you look at a guy like Anthony Hill, he's just got to get to a point where he makes mistakes that they can live with. Because again, you can go full speed all you want to. Go absolutely full speed, and you can run to the ball. But if you miss the assignment, you're running here, and someone else is running by on the other side of you because you were so eager over here, and all of a sudden the ball's right over there, that's touchdown. That's a mistake they can't live with. But the good thing about Anthony Hill is he is trending in all the right places, and he's a guy that they're really, really excited about. He's a guy that, I think I forget what Ketch put in his prediction as to when he would be a person that starts, But it's if it doesn't happen this season, it's definitely happening next year. But he's definitely a guy who's going to absolutely contribute. He's another freshman that you got to be really excited about. And then he wanted to recognize a few of the other young players that are out there. Jelani McDonald. That's a person who's really, and I'm talking about really being a person that is gaining a lot of, traction within training camp. Sarkisian talked about the ways that he's been looking, all throughout camp. Really excited about it. Basically, he's being a guy that helps them be 4 deep in the nickel spot. Jelani McDonald's been able to do that for them as well. I'm going to go ahead and read one of these quotes here, and it's going to be a kind of a mix of young and old when it's all said and done. But one of the things that Sarkisian was asked about yesterday, he was asked like, "Hey, are there any cornerbacks, any defensive backs? Is anybody out there pushing Ryan Watts at this moment? Any cornerback battles?" And so this is what he was able to say. This is what I'll read it for you, okay? Because I know not everybody has a chance to check out the videos and watch all of them. You guys are busy, family, school, all those kind of things. So I totally, absolutely get it. He goes, it's been good that the secondary is playing well. He said, I think one thing historically that we've done on the offensive line with Coach Flood is we're trying to make sure we find the 5 best that can play. Because I think we're kind of doing that in the secondary. What's the best combination of those 5? But we also know we're getting to, point at 230 in 2.5 weeks. We're probably going to need 10 guys. So we're going to need to roll plenty of guys. He goes, I think, here we go. You guys have been waiting for this. I think Terrence Brooks has had a good camp. There's your Terrence Brooks signing for all my people always out there who ask me about Terrence Brooks. There it is. Terrence Brooks has had a good camp. Says, I think Manny Muhammad, says Malik Muhammad. So when I say Manny going forward in this context, I'm referring to Malik Muhammad. So because that's what he's known as Manny. So just want to make sure we clarify that. But I think Manny Muhammad, these couple of practices has started to play well. He goes, I thought Gavin Holmes looked pretty good today. And the thing I like about Terrence Brooks is he can play the field or the boundary. Goes, Manny Muhammad can play field or boundary, so it creates some rotation, and it's good for Ryan. He also, this is another name that's come out there, Warren Roberson. It's another name we're starting to hear a lot of. But he's done some good things for us that have been very encouraging. But yes, Warren Roberson has been out there because at our nickel spot, we're 4 deep right now. Because especially now with Jelani McDonald looking really well. Jalen Gilbo just pleasantly surprised at how he's responded from his injury. So all of a sudden you're looking at Jade Barron, you're looking at Gilbo, you're looking at Austin Jordan, you're looking at Jelani McDonald, all of which they are in the mix, whether at corner or at safety. So we've got a lot of depth there right now, which is good for us. And then putting in plenty of reps, and hopefully we can reap the benefits of that as the season goes along. So you have that thing that's going there. DJ Campbell, of course, is another person who's making strides. This now is interesting. They said he's hovering about like 340 pounds right now. They want him to be maybe the high 330s, but they feel like he's right there. And then, this is another thing that he talked about DJ Campbell that I thought was really interesting yesterday. He said, look, he's not as experienced as the 2 guys he's playing next to. Jake Majors, 3-year starter. Christian Jones, 3-year starter. Because they have a lot of experience. Trusting those guys. If they're calling and they want to block something a certain way, just trust them and go cut it loose and then try to remove some of the doubt or the wondering. That's obviously, it seems to be a thing where you're like, yes, but isn't that life though? Isn't that life? Isn't it life where, every young person is always going to question what the older people say? That's just what it is. If you're a parent, let me let you know in on a little secret. Your kids think you were born old. They do. Your kids don't ever think you were their age. They think you were born at 35 or 40 or something like that. They don't think you were ever their age and went through what they went through, or experienced what they went through, or have any kind of connection to it. They just think you're old. And so when you're a young person on the team, you got the older folks who are telling you to do something. You're like, man, I don't know why they're trying to tell me to do this. But they don't realize because you're 3-year starters. That's why they tell you to do it. So he goes, when he does that consistently all the time, you see what you're seeing every day now. More and more each day gets better and better just playing. And when he does that, he's really good. So you have that, of course, with the DJ Campbell aspect of it as well. Listen, Linda, I know you guys joked with me about the Charles Wright situation, but he does mention Trey Wisner. And I know you guys gave me a hard time about Trey Wisner because I mentioned Charles Wright, but he also talked about Trey Wisner, who's a freshman, coming in, playing well at the running back position, playing well at special teams right now. You know, that's a guy that's going to be clearly in the mix, probably more special teams than anything else. But Trey Wisner is a guy that's in the mix right now that has obviously been playing well. This name that we kind of talked about it on Saturday, but it's worth mentioning once again today. Trevor Gooseby, from the the offensive line position. He's been playing well. Sarkisian talked about how he's got this mean streak, talked about the toughness that he's had. Feels like he's come over on the last week, played a lot on the second team left tackle. But Trevor Gooseby, former basketball player, he's a person that's been kind of another young person who's been kind of turning heads a little bit. Now I heard that Cam Williams was playing on the left tackle position on the second team yesterday, but it doesn't negate any of the progress that Trevor's been making. So you see that. Spencer Sanders has had some good moments with some freshman moments. Ryan Niblett, let's go down the list. Ryan Niblett is another one that Sark had talked about being tough and aggressive. And then right now they're just trying to fine-tune a lot of little different things as it relates to Ryan Niblett. But he's a guy that's been making a lot of progress. So when you start thinking about some of these young guys and what doing, and of course there's still a Sadir Mitchell, who they've been praising as far as what his come up and his coming along. Now Sadir is just, again, it's fine tuning with him. He's a young person, but being a stopgap kind of person, taking up space, clogging up space, that's just something that he does extremely well. And so Sadir Mitchell ends up being another person that everyone's excited about. So the thing that's the biggest takeaway for me has been so far as relates to these young people is that, hey, yeah, they recruited well enough that I remember when I was in Tampa. This is kind of relevant to what I was going to say, but I remember I was in Tampa. There's a coach there by the name of Raheem Morris, who was the coach for a number of years, and he would talk about certain players that he had inherited. And the thing that he always said, and I always remembered, he goes, "I'll tolerate you until I can replace you." Always would say that. I'll tolerate you until I can replace you. And so when I see some of these young people that are here, I'm like, okay, veterans, they've been tolerating you, but they're tolerating you until they can replace you. And they've got some freshmen behind that are ready to take your spot. They've got some freshmen who are ready to step in. They've got some people who they're really excited about. And for some of the older people, you gotta better be ready because they're putting up, they're tolerating. Jere Bledsoe is coming along as well. Christopher Ross is another person. Like, again, Jelani McDonald, I'm just going through some of the list of guys. Like, these are guys that are coming. And at some point, they're not going to throw out 15 freshmen, but at the end of the day, they've got enough people who are talented enough people that if you don't get it right, and again, one of my intros portions of it was you have the potential of getting left behind. Okay, let's do a break real quick, and then Jason Suchomel is going to be back. And we're going to get some recruiting updates from him because I'm really excited to see what's going on, not only with Kobe Black, but with some of the other folks. So listen, hit the like button, hit subscribe, send this link to your friends, tell them like, hey, so some recruiting stuff is about to happen. Jason Suchomel is about to be on. So make sure you guys do not go anywhere. I'll be back in maybe 2, maybe 3 minutes at most.
One of our very first Orangebloods recruiting flashbacks will focus on a player that went on to become one of the best running backs in the history of the sport. Jamal Charles was a high 4-star prospect by Rivals.com when he signed with the Longhorns in 2005, finishing number 57 overall in the Rivals 100 and number 4 overall in the state of Texas. Personally, I had Jamal Charles as a 5-star prospect on my Lone Star Recruiting Top 100 list, but I have to admit that I wasn't head over heels in love with him the first time I watched his junior film as a prospect. It's hard for me to admit this out loud, but I actually had questions about his speed and whether he was really as fast as his track exploits suggested he was. Ultimately, he was scoring touchdowns as a junior at Memorial by such wide margins that he really never had to open up his speed on the field as much as he just seemed to coast. It didn't take me long to figure out that questioning his speed was one of the dumbest things I've ever done while working in this industry, and that's probably saying something. The most dramatic part of his recruitment might have come on the day he decided to commit to the Longhorns, because when he picked up the phone to call running backs coach Mike Haywood, no one was there to take the call. Charles told Jason Suchomel of Orangebloods.com that he would call Mac Brown back the next day and make it official. And that's exactly what he did. The hit rate for the class was exceptional, as Charles was joined by the likes of Henry Melton, Roy Miller, Jermichael Finley, Roderick Muckleroy, Quan Cosby, Chris Hall, Charlie Tanner, and of course, Colt McCoy. When it's all said and done, and you look back at the last quarter century of Rivals.com ranking prospects, Jamal Charles is one of the greatest Longhorn prospects that ever lived.
And welcome back. It is that time of the week that we get to talk to Jason Suchomel and get some recruiting updates. It is time for us to go into our Speakeasy Lounge. Jason, I bet on the Adidas hat. That was my bet. I bet on Adidas and I won.
Did you say that on the air?
I did say it on the air.
Damn it, I should have been watching because I could have purposely cost you some money, man. Hey, my Steelers did win last week. So where's the Super Bowl this year? I'm ready to start booking my tickets, I guess.
Yeah, I think we should all get hyped over preseason games. Just remember, at one point, Jason, when the Detroit Lions finished 4-0 in the preseason before they went 0-16.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, hey, true story, talking about the hat, and I know that's not what I'm here to talk about, but the other day I was out running some errands, and I was at like TJ Maxx or Ross or some crap, and I saw a hat. It was a new Adidas hat, and I'm like, I'm going to buy that hat just to mess with everybody. I picked it up. I'm like, yeah, I like this hat. I flipped on the thing. It was like, it was a woman's hat. I'm like, oh, no.
We wouldn't know.
No, probably not. I'm like, I don't know what makes it a woman's baseball cap, but I'm like, you're stuck with this one for a little while longer.
None of us would know if it was a woman's hat or not. Like it, you could have said it was unisex. It would have been okay. So it's 2023,
Exactly.
Jason. Be comfortable in your own skin. Wear women's hats. So it's all good. Jason, by the way, wifey still gone?
You know what, dude? She literally just called me as we were talking about my hat store. Yeah, she's still gone, and she's probably going to be wondering why the hell I didn't pick up her call. She's now in Argentina.
Oh, Argentina. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you, when she's taking pictures and had sunglasses on, have you looked at the reflection to see who's taking the pictures? Because your wife's been gone a long time. Just asking questions.
I haven't resorted to that trick. According to her, this group she's on of like 40 people, like it's all like older people. She and her friend are the two youngest. So yeah, but I need to maybe have her send me something and blow them up real big on my computer screen and take a look. So, no.
All right, so Jason, let's start recruiting. So I want to start that it seemed yesterday that the Kobe Black thing started trending, and it seemed like the leaves were kind of blowing, and there's a little bit of kind of scuttlebutt and wrestling that was going on. What can you tell us about that 5-star Kobe Black? Because it seems like there's a little smoke, and of course, when there's smoke, there's a little recruiting fire.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, Anwar. Like, I think I said this on our Orangebloods message board. People were posting. We have a recruiting thread where we just put anything we see in there, and people were posting some of these crystal ball picks were coming in from writers at a different network, and I'm like, those seem really late to me. We've all thought Kobe Black was trending to Texas for seriously the better part of a year. Certainly after he took his official visit. And I've always said, hey, it's not a slam dunk, but I've always thought I have had my pick in since June. I think Ketch has had his in since February. Colin Simmons commits. Colin tells me directly, Kobe Black's coming with me to Texas. That was the one guy. He's like, that's happening. So there's some confidence there. And then, kind of heard some rumblings on more over the weekend and early part of this week. We're still early part of this week, I guess, but that kind of solidified some of the things that we had been thinking for a long time. So I felt pretty good about UT's chances for a while. I probably, in fact, my goal is to do a recruiting board this week. I probably would have had Texas at 65 to 70% last week. If you're asking me this week, it's probably 75%. I feel pretty good about Texas's chances, even better about Texas's chances. I will say this. I checked with somebody close to Kobe last night, and I said, hey, man, do I need to be on? I actually used the excuse that, hey, dude, I've got 4 kids. I'm solo dad this week. I got to be in college this weekend down at Houston. I was like, I'm just trying to have my week lined up. Do I need to be on commitment watch for Kobe Black this week? And this person told me no. They said, hey, the plan is still for Kobe to wait until the fall, maybe even take a visit or 2 in the fall. It's recruiting. We're talking teenagers. Does that mean he's not going to end up committing this afternoon? No, it doesn't. But the person I talked to, unless he was sandbagging, and this person would know, said it's probably not going to happen right away. Regardless, I still like UT's position.
Yeah, to your point, there are teenagers, right? So, I mean, so you just never know when the kid wakes up and you're like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do today, right? Yep. That was an Arch thing, right? Arch's plan was like, hey, he was going to take his visits and then, maybe announce later. And then all of a sudden he just woke up one day and was like, I think I'm going to go to UT. And that was the end of it. It was recruitment. So
yeah, it was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. And I mean, it happens all the time. I literally was talking to another reporter about this last night. He's based out of Missouri, and he and I, we both been doing this a long time. And we both said the same thing. We never say, I don't care if a kid tells me directly, I'm going to Texas. I'm going to commit tomorrow at 10 p.m. I always leave about 2% of hedging in there and be like, hey guys, pretty sure good news is coming. Stay tuned. But I'm never going to say 100%. We're talking about 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Hey, I've got several of them running around my house, so I know how unpredictable and unreliable they can be. So.
Yeah. So just real quick, last thing I asked you on Kobe, and we'll move on. Just Jason, for just the average fan who doesn't follow recruiting, gun ho, just tell them a little bit about Kobe Black and why he's important.
Best cornerback in the state, bar none, one of the best in the country. Big, long, athletic kid, can run well, just has really good ball skills. I mean, he really doesn't have any weaknesses on where he would come in. Texas has recruited cornerbacks really well. I mean, Terrence Brooks, Manny Muhammad, those were elite recruits. Kobe Black would probably come in and maybe be arguably the highest rated recruit that they've brought in at that position. He's that kind of player. So, LSU wants him badly. A&M wants him badly. Alabama wants to get him on campus. Oklahoma, Ohio State. I mean, this is a guy that's elite of the elite. He could pick up the phone tomorrow and call any school in the country, and they would take his commitment. If he commits to Texas, I don't know that he's a day one starter. Texas has some really good young depth on that team, and Malik Muhammad, Manny Muhammad's been playing really well. You highlighted him in your scrimmage report on Saturday. I don't know that Kobe would come in and be a day one starter, but he has that kind of talent. But I do think he'd be in that rotation and be playing right off the bat. He's that good.
I have 2 things that I want to get to, but I'll start with the Ryan Wingo situation there. I read your report, Jason, that's on Orangebloods.com, and if you are on Orangebloods.com, Jason's already posted his column, his 3-2-1 column that kind of goes into a lot of details. We're kind of touching on a couple of subjects, but Jason's got a lot more that's in his column there. But Ryan Wingo, the 5-star there, that seems another one that you're hearing a little bit more about. Is what's the buzz as relates to Ryan Wingo right now?
it's kind of a tug of war in terms of information, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
I've been favoring Texas. Jeff Ketchum put a note up per his source, and then he and I talked. I mean, it looked like there was extreme confidence on the Texas side as of yesterday afternoon. I circled back to my Missouri source, who is pretty connected on this, and he's a guy that I trust a lot. He's not a guy that goes overboard with homerism, if you will, just because he covers Missouri. I said, hey, man, are you still sensing a sense of confidence on the Missouri side? Because Texas feels pretty good. And he checked with his people, and he called me back last night. We had a long conversation. I mean, Missouri feels, as of last night, they feel as confident as they ever have with Wingo. There's some moving parts there. Like the state of Missouri passed a law, Anwar, that they can start, high school players can start earning NIL money if they sign with an in-state public school, which pretty much means Missouri. I don't even know what other in-state public schools there are in Missouri. I'm sure there's some, but now how it works, they don't have to sign a letter of intent. All they have to sign is like a financial aid agreement, which is non-binding. So starting September 1, Ryan Wingo, in theory, could draw NIL money from Missouri. So if Missouri said to him, hey, listen, I'm just throwing it hypothetical here. Ryan, we're going to give you X amount of dollars starting in September 1. We'll do it every month. And then when you sign your letter of intent, then we can really kick up the true NIL deal. You kind of can give him some money as a placeholder almost. And then once he signs his letter of intent in December or arrives on campus in January, then you can give him, that big lump sum of money that some of these kids are getting in NIL agreements. So there's some moving parts there. It's really weird to me. It's kind of like Colin Simmons was. There was confidence on the LSU side, confidence on the Texas side. It's the same way. Yesterday afternoon, I would have said 55-45 Texas. As it stands right now, Onward, I'm almost saying 55-45 LSU because that was the most recent information and it was pretty emphatic. Now, there's chatter that Wingo might decide earlier than expected. He was going to announce it in December. Now there's some talk that he might go ahead and announce before his senior season starts. Two things on that. If he commits early like that, I think that's a bad sign for Texas. That makes me think he probably has an NIL agreement in place with Missouri that can start in September. The second side of that, a person very close to Wingo told another reporter that I know as of this morning, the plan is still for him to wait till December. So I think that bodes well for Texas. So I think the longer this one plays out, I think the better it is for Texas. Wingo himself told me on Sunday night, I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot of information at you, I know, but
no, you're good. You're good.
Wingo himself told me directly on Sunday night he will be visiting Texas in the fall for a game. I didn't know which one yet. Maybe Wyoming's been talked about, but it's not locked in. So a lot of moving parts here. But I think if you're a Texas fan, you want this one to kind of stay slow, play it out, let him come in for another visit, and then Texas maybe try to close the deal in December.
Jason, you say Missouri, and I know it's not your wheelhouse or anything, but they just landed another 5-star just yesterday. Williams, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I know that Oklahoma was in on that. I saw everyone piling on OU about that. Yep. Georgia, Oregon, Tennessee. Missouri landed a 5-star yesterday. They're talking to Ryan Wingo right now, another 5-star. Is it simply because both of these kids are from Missouri, or is Missouri somehow becoming some sort of recruiting threat that none of us see coming?
Yeah, they're not a recruiting threat. It's because they're from Missouri. But I mentioned this in my column on where Missouri traditionally has done a pretty good job on these truly elite of the elite can't miss players from the state of Missouri. Dorial Green Beckham was I think that's the right name, a receiver back in the day that everybody wanted, including Texas. They kept him home. They've kept a lot of their 5-star type guys at home. You mentioned the kid yesterday, the defensive lineman. I mean, he's one of the best players in the country. Shocked a lot of people. A lot of people thought he was going to Oklahoma. He winds up at Missouri. There's some thought that maybe that NIL opportunities played a part in that. Some of those early NIL opportunities played a part in that decision. Like I'll tell you what, the guy that I talked to, he brought up a good point on a guy like Ryan Wingo. If you start seeing Ryan Wingo in September doing some car commercials or whatever for a dealership in St. Louis or the state of Missouri, all right, dude, that's a pretty good indication he's committed to Missouri and is signed an NIL deal. So we'll see how that unfolds. But yeah, I don't expect Missouri is going to be a thorn in UT's side very often at all. But when it comes to in-state players, especially those really highly ranked ones, Missouri, they come out with everything they can to try to keep those guys in state, and they've done a pretty good job on a lot of them.
Let me ask you one more recruiting question. I'm going to ask you some stuff about like UT itself. In recruiting, Jason, you got to always put certain things in perspective, and there's always a freak out for the current class. I don't know what to make of a guy like Decorian Moore, who is recruiting in the he commits to LSU and he's in the 2025 class. I don't even know how to wrap my head around what am I used to. And it's not to say it's not a good moment for the kid, but am I really supposed to like take seriously a kid that commits in 2025 where I know he's going to take all kinds of visits? I mean, it just seems like I'm just almost like, oh, I'll get to that next year. I don't even know how to even think about that this year.
I've got a lot of the same thoughts. It's funny, he commits to LSU, and you have like Jordan Johnson Rebel's mom, UT commitment's mom, like being like, okay, whatever, we'll see you in Austin next January. So, it's such an interesting move. I mean, first off, Decorian's an awesome young man. I mean, he's not a guy that I think's willy-nilly with some of his decision making. His mom's, just super nice and involved, and she's not going to let him do things, without her approval. I don't think it's just he's not a kid that I would expect to make hasty decisions. But this seems to me like a hasty decision, but it goes against what I know of Decorian. So I don't know why. If I was advising him, and obviously I can't do that, but if it was my son, if my son was Decorian Moore, I'd be like, hey, dude, wait this thing out until as long as you can for NIL opportunities. Right now, he'll still have those opportunities. Truth be told, they've probably already been discussed with LSU. Schools like Texas are not going to go away. They're going to continue those discussions and try to get him on campus. But, he visited there in late July, just fell in love with it apparently. But I think that one's a long way from being over, Anwar. You're right. I mean, no, I wouldn't tell you not to pay attention to it because he's an elite player. He's the best player in the state probably, or one of the top two in the state in his class. He's one of the top players in the country. I certainly think people should still pay attention to it. But yeah, it was a really interesting decision. We had heard that he was going to maybe commit the same day that Colin Simmons did in Caden Durham. Decorian shot that down, but then I kind of kept hearing, like, hey, it's going to happen pretty soon for LSU. I think I reported it in the war room on Thursday night, and what was it, a couple days later, he ends up committing. I think it was Saturday. He ends up committing. So definitely a surprising move, but I also think it's one that he thought out quite a bit. So it wasn't like he just woke up that morning and was like, I'm going to go ahead and commit. But I think there's still time for a lot of movement in that one.
All right. So Jason, I asked you a couple more. You're a Malik Murphy guy. That's been your guy since high school. That's been your dude. You have stood on the table for Malik Murphy. You've told everybody about Malik. Yesterday, we heard Sark. He talks a lot about Arch and all the things that he's doing well. We heard the practice reports over the weekend. I need to know, where are you with your Malik stock? You still holding on to it at this moment?
I'm still holding it. I'm not selling I don't care if Malik transfers. I'm holding on to my Malik stock. I think that dude's ultra talented. I think he's first off, I do think he's ultra talented, but I also he's got an infectious personality and a huge smile, and he's just a fun dude to cover as a recruit. I said before fall camp started, I said, the thing that I'm most interested to watch is the backup quarterback race.
Yep, you did.
And now it's even more interesting after that scrimmage on Saturday because Arch apparently played really well. Malik had some struggles. So, the door is certainly open for Arch all of a sudden. I mean, Malik never had it slammed shut, but after that spring game performance, I mean, Malik, had that door pretty close to being shut. But, boy, it's wide open now again. So they've got another scrimmage on Saturday. We'll see what happens in that one. Yeah, but Arch certainly did what you kind of expect Arch Manning to do. He had, I think what I was told, and I think, Anwar, you probably, maybe reported the same thing. I mean, I heard it was his best practice probably since he's been a Longhorn. So he picked a good time to do it in a scrimmage, and that race is certainly tight. So it'll be fun to follow over the next couple weeks.
Last thing, Jason, I'll let you get out of here. As we, like you said, we got another scrimmage that's going to happen on this upcoming Saturday. Is there anything that you feel like you're following? Anything that you feel like you're keeping up with? Like, is there one more position battle, one more intrigue? Is there just one more thing that you feel like I just need to hear this to be sold on this team? Like, what will be the thing that you're going to want to hear, over the next week or even more?
More consistent and better play from the offense, and less sloppiness. One person I spoke to last night at length about the scrimmage, and I put a bunch of notes in my column too this morning. He just said, hey, it was pretty sloppy, a lot of jumping off sides on both sides of the ball. And, Sark addressed that after the scrimmage was over and said, hey guys, I get it. It's been a long week. It's hot. We've been hitting, this has been our toughest week, but that stuff better be cleaned up in the next scrimmage. It wasn't like, hey, let's work on it. It was like, no, that better be cleaned up. So, this team, obviously it's ranked, top 11, 12, depending on what we're talking. This is a really good team. It should be a really good team. We expect it to be a Big 12 championship caliber team, maybe even beyond that if the right things fall in place. I didn't get to see the scrimmage, of course, Anwar, but what I heard of last week's scrimmage tells me there's still work to do. They got time. Hey, there's a couple weeks left in fall camp, and they got an opener against Rice to kind of work off some rust. But I want to hear that this next scrimmage on offense and as a whole, in terms of the cleanliness of the play, is a little bit better than that first scrimmage.
All right, Jason Suchomel from Orangebloods.com. You can read everything that he writes from recruiting perspective, team perspective, even as a photographer. Goes out to some of these practices and takes photos for us. He's a jack of all trades, but he's Mr. Adidas himself. Go back out and get that woman's hat, Jason. We're not going to know the difference at all. We would have never known.
I can't do it now, dude. If I get it now, you'll give me so much shit every time you have me on.
Even if you went out to see the Barbie movie, Jason, I would not have given you any crap over that. So, Jason Suchomel, I appreciate you. Thanks for joining. Let's go ahead. Let's do one last little break. We'll do our social media standouts, and we'll get ready to close out the show. Don't go anywhere. I got some fun stuff to close this show out with.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at a player that was the first commitment of the TCU class of 2020 and became the last signee of the Texas 2020 recruiting class, with a little stopover in Waco in between. That's right, Texas senior defensive back Jahdae Barron had one hell of a recruitment before eventually developing into one of the most important remaining players from a somewhat disastrous 2020 recruiting class. For those that might not remember, Barron finished as a mid 3-star prospect in the Rivals.com rankings while finishing 79th in the state and 72nd in the country as a cornerback. Should note for the record that I had Barron ranked as a 4-star prospect in my rankings and the number 30 overall prospect in the state. When we look at his recruitment, things really started to heat up following a junior day visit in February of 2019 to TCU and Gary Patterson. After visiting on the junior day in February, Barron committed just a couple of weeks later, citing that Patterson's track record of developing players was a big reason for his decision. Yet a little more than a month later, Barron backed out of his commitment to Patterson, primarily because his offer list started to take off shortly after his commitment, with the likes of Oklahoma State, Tennessee, and Arizona jumping into the mix. Before his decommitment, he actually took an unofficial visit to the 40 acres, although the Longhorns didn't offer. Fast forward to June 22nd, and Barron announced his commitment to Baylor. From that moment on, all the way through the rest of signing day, Barron was solid as a rock to the Bears, even in the aftermath of the departure of Baylor head coach Matt Rule. Things changed for Barron in April as he asked for Baylor to release him from his national letter of intent. Quote, "Thank you to the Baylor Nation for embracing me," he said on Twitter. "Today, I requested an official release from my NLI to Baylor and will begin looking for a new school to pursue my athletic dreams and career goals." 8 days later, Barron committed to Tom Herman's Texas Longhorns. Flipping Barron was a huge win for defensive backs coach Jay Valai, who had only been in Austin for a few months when he landed Barron. Barron was the 20th and final signee to a 2020 recruiting class that finished 16th in the nation. While Bijan Robinson is famously remembered as the headliner of the class, Barron was one of the 3 lowest rated prospects in the entire group, according to Rivals.com. Of the 2 players ranked lower than Barron, one of them was none other than All-America linebacker Jalen Ford.
Okay, let's get into our social media standouts. One of my favorite parts of the show as we get ready to close this thing out. Blake, go ahead and put the first one on there. This is from Reddit CFP. Good follow on Twitter for as long as you and I decide to stay on Twitter. I don't know how much longer I want to do this thing. But he goes, teams with losing records in 2022 ranked in the preseason AP top 25. And check this out. This is what I'm talking about. Number 20, Oklahoma. Number 23, Texas A&M. Losing records in 2022, yet they are ranked in the AP top 25. This is what I say. Hey, nobody should give Texas crap for being ranked number 11. When you look at programs like this, like, well, you guys had a losing record. Like, you had a losing record. Like, at least Texas can say they had a winning record and you're projecting a jump. These teams had losing records, and somehow they get in. So I don't want to hear anything else about, well, Texas and their reputation and blue bloods and all this other kind of stuff. When these kind of programs can get in with losing records, then at this point, I don't want to hear anything about Texas being at number 11. Blake, let's go ahead and give me another one. SEC Mike. Okay. And by the way, I like Mike, but I really feel like he's smoking a little bit too much. He might be, he's a little bit off. So Texas football tweets something out. It says someone says 19 days until kickoff. And of course, they have the Justin Tucker, obviously the legendary Justin Tucker kick. And SEC Mike, who again, Mike Branton, really good guy. I've been on his show numerous times and enjoy him. And a really good guy. He goes, I can't wait for the Twitter battle to finally be decided on the field again. Yes. It means because I see a lot of you guys going at Lucci all the time. He goes, Texas versus Texas A&M week 1 in 2024. In my opinion, the sooner the better. They don't schedule the matchup for rivalry weekend. Stop it. Stop it, SEC Mike. That is not week 1. First off, who the hell is scheduling one of your biggest rivals in week 1? Like, what AD wants that? Like, that in itself, that's not what you do. No, you need some tune-up games. So we'll first start there. The second thing is, I am sorry, this game should be played on one date and one date alone. It's got to be on Thanksgiving. Like, the last thing I'm trying to see is this thing in week 1. There's no week 1 Texas versus Texas A&M. No, we're not jumping back into that. What we're jumping into is Texas versus UTSA or whatever the hell's on the future schedule. That's where that's going to be. Give me that game where it needs to play the tradition of Thanksgiving Day. Bring it back, run it back on that occasion. I don't want to hear anything about rivalry weeks or anything that affect. No. Spread that thing out. We know where Texas OU is going to be. See you at the end of the year. And then you can give A&M the beatdown that they deserve. Give me another one. Give me another one, Blake. Give me another one. What else we got? What else do we have? We had to delete a couple of little things because some people were a little bit. So did someone this is from Message Board Genius. So Message Board Genius gets on different message boards, they screenshot stuff and then they put it out there. So there's this person on Sooner Scoop named Big Honey 69 and it says, and we are landing how do you say is Nawarni? But anyway, Mr. Williams. I don't want to jack up his name. He goes, bet your cojones and your male private part on it, is what he says. All right. And if it doesn't happen, I will delete my account and pay for someone else budget for a year. That's how good this source is. And then that person commits to Missouri. And so, yes, I'm not on Sooner Scoop anymore, but once they left the Rivals Network, do know some of those guys over there. Do know Eddie, and really fun guy at times. Overall, I like Eddie a lot. But the question is, who's holding him accountable? And is he deleting his account? Like, that's the thing that we need to know. It's such that's what you got. That's why I tell you can be a social media standout for all the good reasons. You can be a social media standout for all the bad reasons. And that is a bad reason. All right, Blake, let's do a couple of more. Let's do a couple more. Let's go get a couple more knocked out because that one was kind of a fun one. We'll see if it does. Okay, hey, check this out. All right, Pat McAfee announces that the first show that he will have live on a campus on a Friday will be an assignment class, will be Texas, Alabama, week 2 in Tuscaloosa. Now, here's the thing. I gotta tell you guys, I'm gonna be honest with you guys on this. And this probably is a big thing for a lot of people. I never have seen this Pat McAfee show. I've heard about him. I know he's a big deal. I know he's a big deal, but I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know what makes him popular. I've seen him. My biggest memory of him, honestly, was him, like, I think going to like a Texas Baylor game or something, or was it a Baylor? And he jumped in the water, but that's it. And I really don't know what the hype is all about. So you guys would have to tell me, but I'm assuming this is a big thing for a lot of people because I saw a lot of people talking about it on Twitter yesterday. Pat McAfee will be there for the Texas, Alabama. He'll do like a live simulcast during the show. He'll do a pregame show on a Saturday, something to that effect, like a Friday, pregame show on a Friday, live simulcast during the Saturday. Again, he's a big guy. He's a big deal. And again, you guys just have to tell me what makes him a big deal, and maybe I'm missing out, or maybe it's something I just need to check out. Again, it's no disrespect. I know he's a big deal. I just don't know why. That's all. All right, one last social media standout, and let's get into this one. This was crazy. This was crazy. So former NFL player Michael Orr, the subject of the Blindside, petitioned a court on Monday with allegations that Sean and Lee and I don't know how to pronounce their last name. I don't know how to pronounce a lot of last names, apparently, never adopted him, instead tricking him into signing a document, making them into the conservators and enriching themselves. And I went and read this story. It was a crazy story because, first of all, Michael Orr apparently has never liked this whole Blindside movie thing because it made him look kind of like he was slow and all these other kind of things. And he said like that kind of affected him when it came to the NFL draft because people thought he was the guy from the movies. And it's like, I'm not that guy from the movies. I'm not slow. This thing was dramatized to make him look kind of bad. And so there's this whole petition. And apparently, I didn't know until yesterday that dude never received a dime from the Blindside. Never received a dime from a movie that was based on him and his life, which is crazy to me. It makes you look at that whole movie like absolutely differently. Now, look, someone goes ahead and puts like, hey, on a happier note, Michael Orr has a beautiful family of his own now, and they are a beautiful, beautiful looking family. It's something to be very, very proud of. Handsome boys, beautiful young girls, like very, very nice, amazing looking family. So happy for him. But I cannot believe dude never made any money off the movie. And then what's crazy about it, that the movie was so many years ago. So then there's a part of me was wondering, what took you so long to sue? Like that's been a long time. But I don't know. There's probably a lot going on. As you know, he thought they were family, not family. I guess when he found out that he was never really adopted, that kind of ends up being the straw that breaks the camel's back as relates to the whole relationship. But I don't know if I can watch this movie again, knowing until this guy actually gets some money and gets paid for this entire thing. That was that's a social media standout on the bad side of things. Crazy how life can be. All right. Let me just go ahead and close this thing out, and we're going to close it out quickly in our, I guess it's kind of a final drive. It's more, but just talking about the things that are come. So just know that at 12, we've got my main man, Jeff Ketchum. We've got my main man, Chad Hastings. Yes, this will be House Divided. That thing is coming up from 12 to 3 today. They had lots of fun topics. They had a really great show yesterday, breaking down the polls. They got a great connection. I told Ketch about this. I joked about this when the last time I talked to him. I was like, Ketch and I, you and I did a show for a long time, for years, and I feel like we had a really good relationship. But then I see you with Chad. It's kind of like going through a breakup and you see the person that you're with and it seems like they might be happier. And I feel like you might be happy. Like I feel like I look at my ex and he's like, oh, I'm in a really great relationship with Chad Hastings. It's okay. I'm happy for you. I'm happy by myself because I'm living my best life. And then, of course, the Rodcast from our main man, Rod Babers, from 3 to 5. He'll be up here talking Texas sports. And by the way, we got new editions coming. We got a show coming on Wednesday night. Like, there's a lot more things that are coming, a lot more things that are down the pipe. So just get ready for all that. Thank you for enjoying and listening. I'll be back here tomorrow morning. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Thank you to Blake for all the producing that you've done behind the scenes. Make sure you check out all the shows that are there. Check out orangebloods.com, all our sponsors or our partners. Absolutely appreciate you listening. Absolutely appreciate your support. And remember what I always say, live each day like it was your last, because one day it will be. And I'll see you.